Sorry, everyone. I'm a little out of breath there. I had to go do a last-minute pour before we got started for here. Episode 16. In the house, we have our first ever Calvary Officer, Armor Officer.
It's cavalry, by the way.
Calvary armor, though. As you can see, he had to bring his toys.
Spelled it wrong in the description, too.
But I'd like to welcome everybody and welcome Matt to episode 16. Matt's a former Army captain. And as we've already alluded to, obviously from the Army. And armor, we're going to call you armor officer, though.
Yeah, that's correct.
Technically. So, but thanks for coming aboard. Super excited for a lot of different reasons. We're in a bourbon. We've been in a bourbon group together for,
4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
5 years,
long time. And this is the first time we've ever met in person. So I thought that was pretty funny. He lives in the middle of nowhere, Ohio from us. So he might as well be in Iowa as far away as. So he decided today to finally meet face to face and come into the big city. He only does this about
once every couple of years.
Yeah. So I'm honored that you came in. It obviously is because I have bottles he hasn't picked up in a couple of years, so he's not lying to you. But like most of my guests, almost all of them, Matt is from Ohio. Unlike some of them, he did not spend all of his life in Ohio. So you bounced around a little bit growing up.
Yeah. Born in Virginia and Newport News. My dad had a job down there out of college, so born down there and moved to Maryland and New York and then back to Ohio in about the third grade before disappearing again after college.
Nice. And then, so we're in New York. So I'm originally from New York.
Rochester.
Okay. My wife's from Binghamton. My wife's family's from Binghamton. Spent some time there. So cool. Another New Yorker guy. Look at that. How long were you there?
A few years. 4 years.
You see his dad's here in the audience helping him out. See, and remember, everybody's an armor officer, so he had to bring his dad to help him with some numbers and stuff. So, basically, for everybody that's going, like the armor guys are like the Marines. So that's kind of the same thing. So we brought some support with them to do that. So I'm gonna give him a lot of crap. The school I went to is actually a huge, cavalry school back in the day. So just give him a hard time. But so you moved back to Ohio with your parents. Went to Chillicothe.
Yep.
High school, graduated in 2004.
Yep.
Not a young buck.
Not anymore.
Yeah. So 2004, you grew up there. So I asked your dad before. So your dad was in the military, but anybody else in your family in the military?
My dad was not. My dad was not in the military.
Okay.
My two brothers are.
Okay.
Or were. My one brother was in the Army, and one brother's currently in the Navy. Should be getting home from his deployment here in about a week.
Okay. You guys got to give him a hard time. No?
Oh, yeah, we do. We're pretty relentless. But he's bringing me Japanese release Blanton's, so it's okay.
So it's gonna be a great Christmas for him. Yeah. You're gonna be like, you're my favorite brother. How many bottles did you bring me?
Yeah.
He's already hooked you up. He's already have them?
This is his third deployment.
Okay.
He brought me Blanton's Gold once, and now he's got, I think he's got some silver and some black.
Okay. So for all the non-bourbon people, he's talking about Blanton's different colors. Those are different color labels, and the ones he's talking about are generally sold in the not the U.S. market. So there's been some changes to that recently, past couple of years, but generally those are all sold in Europe, Asia, places like that. So that's cool. He's going to definitely be your. Got to make sure you get him a good gift.
Yeah.
Give him a regular bottle of
Maybe guys like.
That'd be awesome. So growing up, we had some discussion about this. So did you know you wanted to go in the Army and be an officer, or when did that come about?
I was a sophomore in high school when watched those towers fall, and after that, I pretty well knew where I was headed. It was a long road to get there.
Yeah,
with some stuff I had going on, but yeah, I think from the time I was a sophomore on, I was pretty much on that track.
Yeah, so you talked about what I was going to allude to, but you wanted to do this young. That's what I kind of thought. I think most of the people, like we've talked about before, that there's a certain part that at a young age, or there's something in your mind that makes you decide you want to join. And then you actually got pretty sick when you were a senior. And
yeah, when I was a junior,
sorry.
I got hyperthyroidism, lost a whole bunch of weight real fast. In about 3 months, I lost about 50 pounds, and I was playing football at the time, and we were in summer camps 2 days, and my coach finally went to my mom and was like, you got to take this kid to the doctor. So
right.
found out it was hyperthyroidism. And so I dealt with that for the next 3 years roughly. And then when I was in college, after my first year of college in ROTC, I took radioactive iodine twice to have my thyroid ablated because you can't take the medication long term if your thyroid is overactive. So they have to destroy your thyroid and then replace it with Synthroid, which I take every day now. And then I had to go through the waiver process to actually contract with ROTC. Had my first back surgery mixed in there too at age 19. So I had to get waivers for both of those things, and was halfway through my senior year of college before I was able to contract with ROTC and contract with the Army. So never got any money or anything for school, but as one of my buddies put it when we were talking about it the other day, he's like, wow, so you paid to be in the Army.
Right.
I was like, yeah, pretty much.
So there's a couple different routes as Matt's talking about ROTC. So there are people that you can actually contract the minute you step foot into college in an Army ROTC scholarship. I think there's, when I was there, those 4 years and 2 years, I think those are the same. And there's also some people that go in that don't, you don't contract until you get to usually your junior year or senior year, depending on the needs of the Army, and then also what you've proven to, your leadership and academics and stuff like that. But the waiver, the medical thing is also sometimes, I've known some people too the same way that had some type of medical condition that they're waiting for the awesome military doctors to finally bless off on, that probably could have taken about a year, probably 2 months, and it would have been normal. But yeah. So as he alluded to, graduated 2004, headed to Xavier, the first place you went for a couple years.
Yep.
Then you decided to transfer over to Northern Kentucky, right?
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't on an ROTC scholarship or anything, and those private schools are a little pricey. Yeah. So left Xavier and went across the river to Northern Kentucky. Still stayed at Xavier. It was a satellite school for the NKU was a satellite school for Xavier's ROTC program. So I still lived at Xavier and took all my Army classes there in the mornings, and then went across the river for my regular classes during the afternoons.
How far up distance is that?
15 minutes.
Okay. I thought it was further. I don't know. Maybe.
No.
I remember going to a baseball tournament. I guess it was the wrong Northern Kentucky University I went to. It's probably different than. I thought what's the one in Lexington then? That's where we're at.
UK is down there.
There's another smaller one like.
I don't know. It might be Western or Eastern Kentucky. It's probably EKU.
That makes sense. Yeah. My direction's real good. I'm getting old too. That's
damn infantry guys, man.
No, but that's good to have to know that. I was confused by that, but that's all right. So, so you finally get contracted your senior year. Mm-hmm. So did you actually pick Armor, or did Armor pick you?
I picked Armor.
Okay.
I ad sold for Armor, which means I made an additional 3-year commitment to get my branch of choice, and then I got stationed in Alaska after that, which was one of my top 3. I was pretty excited for that.
Not too bad. You had a little bit of a hiccup for a few years, and then you get your first branch, your top 3 duty assignment. What was your first duty assignment?
Like, where'd I go first, or what was my first choice?
First choice?
I don't remember. Probably Germany, I would guess. Something like that. But Alaska was definitely way up there. I remember when I got the email that said I was going to Alaska, I was home alone, and I kind of jumped around like a little schoolgirl. I was pretty excited.
But it's interesting. You always hear that. Like, I don't think I got any of my top choices of what might do something. I got stuck at Fort Hood. No one chooses Fort Hood.
I did.
Did you really?
And got sent to Bliss instead.
Wow. Yeah.
As an armor officer.
I mean,
who tells an armor officer they can't go to Hood? The U.S.
I mean, that's
Army.
probably the best thing that's probably the best thing that happened. I mean, not really, because Bliss sucks too. I mean, I don't know any of the places in Texas that are really that great, to be honest with you. But so you went to Fort Wainwright, right? Alaska. Yep. First duty assignment was with 5th Squadron, 1st Cavalry Regiment.
That's right. Yep.
1st Brigade, 25th Infantry Division.
Yep.
So, and then you were in a Striker Brigade combat team, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And then what's interesting about that, you graduate from your officer basic course. And things have changed since Matt has went. Now all the armor guys are down in Benning at the maneuver school, I think they call it now. So back when Matt was an armor officer, they were still at Fort Knox getting trained. So you head to Alaska, you link up with your unit, but you find out what?
Well, actually, I found out when I was still at Knox that they were over in Iraq. And I basically had slots for Ranger and Airborne and that stuff. And I literally got an email from my Squadron S1 that said, we need you, give up all your schools and get over here or you're not getting a platoon. And so I was in Alaska for 2 weeks and then found myself in Iraq.
Which is that's great. I mean, that's good. What did the family think of that? You're supposed to be going to school.
We knew what was coming.
Yeah, it was a time, I
the
guess.
Army
Yeah.
in 2008.
Yeah,
You know where you're going.
That is true, actually. I'm thinking like it's still today, but yeah, I guess that's true. You're going either one or two places or Bliss or somewhere else or like that. But so you actually link up with the unit there in Iraq, right, at the time, and you take over right away as a platoon leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
The platoon I took over had been in the only direct fire engagement that the squadron had seen all year. 2 rotations before, the Cav squadron from the 82nd pretty well cleaned house in Diyala province. And so we walked into that. It was pretty quiet most of the time. But on February 23rd of 2009, 3 months before I got there, the platoon that I eventually took over took some contact and they ended up losing 3 guys. And the lieutenant, who's a Columbus guy, got shot in the hand and redeployed. And so I walked into a platoon that was without a lieutenant for a few months.
So what was that like? Because I guess when I went in, we were all like at the tip of the spear together going into it. So what was that like, deploying over there, then deploying into a platoon of guys that had already, if not once or twice, already seen deployment and then already seen action? Was it? I mean, it's already bad enough if you don't know if you're a second lieutenant and you show up and you're platoon leader. They're really not that happy with you when you first show up, let alone like after you'd already been involved in all kinds of other stuff. Was there any kind of like extra joshing going on, or was it?
Yeah, I definitely had to prove myself. That's for sure. They were a pretty tight-knit group,
right,
as you can imagine, after what they'd been through. And so when I walked in, like you said, brand new second lieutenant, fresh out of school, here I am. I'm your new platoon leader. I kind of just sat back and took things in and kind of learned from my NCOs, right? Like a good young lieutenant should.
That's the key word. Not everyone does that.
Not all of them do. I had a platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Kelly, who I knew he always had my back. Right. And they were a pretty rough group at times, but I knew Sergeant Kelly would never let me fail. Like, he'd scuff me up a little bit, but he'd never let me fail.
Yeah.
And so I always knew I could fall back on him, and he took good care of me and did everything he could to teach me what I needed to know. And
yeah, that's kind of like quick OG, OJT pretty fast. A little bit different than going, the platoon to get a train. You don't really know who anybody is, and then all of a sudden now they know who everybody is, and they have no idea who you are. So that's kind of and that's interesting. I thought about that when you sent the bio to me. That's crazy because we all did it together, and then at some time, most of the time, I guess it was happening a lot more than I thought about when it happened to me. It wasn't normal for me. We all were doing it together for the first time. I was a company commander, so I'd been through the training up and all that kind of stuff. As we didn't deploy anywhere, but other than the NTC and JRTC and stuff like that. So and then we always remember, like my first platoon sergeant was Sergeant First Class Mason. The same thing, kept me out of trouble, but gave me a hard time. As long as I didn't resist, and went to his side and not the dark side, everything was good. But
there was one time specifically I can remember. He and I kind of got into it on the radio a little bit about some little tactical decision when we were going to clear a palm grove or something. And I don't think he realized exactly how I was trying to position the gun trucks while the dismounts pushed through there. And once he realized, after we were arguing about it on the net, he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, go ahead."
Yeah, but he knows he didn't say that on the net though. He's still that was in private. Hey sir,
I think at the time it was like, "Fuck it, do whatever the LT says."
And afterwards, it's like, "Hey, don't tell the guys, but you were right." Okay.
But no, he was awesome. He was a great influence on me right at the beginning of my career like that. I'm very grateful to him.
It's a total different, at the time I was going in, it was a peace, we were at peace and I showed up and I was so excited that I had all this leave to find a place to live. Right. So I just moved to Fort Hood. I'd already had an apartment. I had everything set away. So I had like 2 weeks to go, do whatever I want. So I meet my platoon sergeant. I'm like, I'm going on leave or whatever for 2 weeks. And he's like, "We're going to the field in like a week." And I'm like, "What?" And so I'd already met the company commander, nobody mentioned this to me. So I'm thinking like, holy cow, here's my platoon sergeant looking out for me. This guy's got my back. So I'm like, okay. And I was too afraid to actually ask my company commander, like, am I really going to the field in a week? that never happened again with Sergeant Mason. So so I literally take a week. I show up on Monday. My company commander's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing back? I thought you were on leave for 2 weeks." And I said, "Well, I want to come back. My platoon's deploying to the field." And he's like, "What are you fucking talking about?" I'm like, Sergeant Mason told me we're going to the field in like a week. He's like, "No." He's like, "No." Like so I'm irritated. I go to Sergeant Mason. I'm like, "What, dude? What did you do that for?" And he's like, "Sir, did you have a place to live? You don't have any kids. You don't have a wife. Like, you need to get back here to the unit and do your job. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't need to be sitting around." And he couldn't even say anything like playing Xbox because we didn't have that. Mess around on your phone. Nothing. Was like, just get in here and do your job. So that was always a great lesson that he had my back and wanted me to do something, but also to make sure I check and recheck because they do like to play pranks on the second lieutenant. So, any good pranks while you were over there, though? I mean, you're in the war zone. Did they mess with you at all? I mean, I got to imagine these guys had some kind of something in store for you.
They didn't mess with me too bad. No, I can't think of anything too bad they did. I mean, we played basketball like every night. And look at me, I'm not the guy that plays basketball, right? So they beat up on me pretty bad there. They always call me Suge White, like Suge Knight, but I'm white. So the guy that I think probably coined that, he gave me a little heart-shaped rock that I still have. He had colored it red and written LT on it, and I still have that rock. He actually died a couple months ago in an accident, but I still have that rock.
That's a great nickname, bro.
It was funny.
And they said that about you all the time, too.
I'm sure.
When you run around, that's
I'm
great.
Sure.
So you spend 4 months in beautiful Iraq, thinking you're going to be in Alaska.
Yep.
You come back, you stay a platoon leader, and then move into the dreaded S3 shop for the first time?
Yeah, I spent 8 months when I got home. I spent 8 months as a platoon leader in garrison, just kind of training up because we had Afghanistan coming up about 19 months after we got home. Sergeant Kelly left. I had a bad platoon sergeant after that. They ended up having to fire, and you don't hear much about second lieutenants firing platoon sergeants, right? But had to deal with that, and then had an E6 that stepped up, like a new E6, who was my platoon sergeant after that for a while. And then, I moved up into the S3 shop where I became like the garrison battle captain, and I was scrubbing calendars and writing fragos and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Perfecting your PowerPoint skills.
That's right. Yep. Font. Assembling all those Cub slides. Yep. You got it.
Making sure all the font matches.
Yeah.
All the important stuff. All the stuff that makes shit happen. The PowerPoint,
Yeah.
That's
good times.
I know you always think about all those times you spent. Somebody looking at slide 3. Can we go back to slide 3? Some major and being like, "Is that Arial font right there? Because that doesn't look like Arial font."
And then to top things off, they made me the USR officer after a while.
God, you
had to do that.
But that's pretty good, though. I mean, if you're looking at it, you go to your platoon, like it's pretty good. It's pretty good that you get to deploy right away. Yeah. First deployment pretty quick. So you got to go to purgatory for a little bit. So most of the times where people don't know, I guess I don't know how it is now, but most of the time it's flipped like that. You may go to a job where you're in the S3 first, and then you work your way into platoon. So sometimes it's very depending on the branch and where you're stationed, where you're going. You may not get to your platoon for a little bit of time. So it's always
And I wouldn't trade that time for anything, because if I hadn't done it that way, I wouldn't have had any platoon leader time downrange.
Right.
I would have been all garrison time. I'd have done 12 months in garrison, and then I'd moved out of my platoon before we went to Afghanistan.
So you're a big hunter. We're going to talk about that later. So I just thought about Alaska. Were you hunting before you went to Alaska, or did that? Okay.
Yeah, I started hunting when I was 11. My grandpa got me into hunting pheasants and deer, and so I grew up with that. And then when I found out I was going to Alaska, my parents actually gave me a 30-06, a Remington 700 30-06. And a float hunting book for Alaska specifically. Nice. And I was ready to go shoot some moose.
You definitely, after hearing that story and what your dad told me, you need to be giving him more bourbon, because he told me you're holding out on the good stuff. So after hearing that story, unlock the cabinet, let your dad have what he wants. He deserves it. Okay. So
there's no lock on it. My kids are too little. I don't have to worry about it yet.
The other thing is, I'm at that I'm past that age, but hopefully, thank God, none of my kids we've talked about before like whiskey. So this is good. So we're going to take our first break here. I mean, we're still in Alaska. You're now in the S3 shop. So let's have our first whiskey break, because Jason's not here and he's probably stressing out. We're 20 minutes into it. And we haven't talked about the first whiskey. He usually likes to get it knocked out fast. So Jason, sorry. We're gonna hit it now. So you actually brought an Elijah Craig, one of the 94 proofers we've talked about on the podcast before, the barrel proof stuff, but just like the other ones, this is distilled at Heaven Hill, which we've talked about before is the largest family owned and operated distillery in Kentucky and in the United States. It was founded in 1935. It's actually the 7th largest whiskey supplier in the U.S. and 2nd largest holder of bourbon in the United States. So pretty good stuff. They do a ton of products that we've talked about before. Heaven Hill has Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, Old Fitzgerald, Larceny, and then some different variants of this. So this variant, the small batch store picks, that actually came about in 2016 when they kind of redesigned their small batch program and their barrel strength program, and they came out with these single barrels. And unlike the ones we've talked about earlier on the show, this one was they initially only started off with 94 proof, and this is one of those. They've now since 2021, they now offer, you can still get the 94 proof version, or you can get the barrel proof, which has become way more popular. What's great about the one that Matt brought is what you should never turn your eyes on these, because some of the ages on these are incredible. This one's actually 13 and a half years old. It's 94 proof. And then like all the other mash bills, it's 78% corn, 10% rye, and 12% malted barley. So these are always enjoyable. And what's great about these two, generally, I think the most I've ever seen them for is like $39.99. So it's a great bottle to get. If you ever see the single barrels, definitely get them. It's going to be harder and harder to see this because most of the people have gone, when they do the selection, to go up to the barrel proof, but these are always great. Thanks for bringing it.
Yeah. It's hard to find them that old too. Most of them I think are like 9 or 10 years old now.
Right. So I'm getting told that we missed the quote. Like, they always want me not to be structured. I love my crew. They don't want me to be structured. And then when I'm not structured, they're always like, notes are coming up. So I'm gonna actually not read the first quote. I'm gonna read another quote because it's a good one that's not on here. We'll go back to the other quote. That was my plan anyways. But I had to do this one as a good knock on the Calvary. So you probably know who it's coming from. So, and it's not on there. You're not going to find that one on there. But it says, there are not enough Indians in the world to defeat the 7th Cavalry. That quote is from General George Armstrong Custer. So that's the the cavalry officer for you. So we have some other better quotes. We'll read them later on. But I thought that was a good one. I had to pull that one off just to give you a hard time, Yeah. And we all know. I think everybody knows what happened. That is absolutely not the truth. I don't know the exact number, but there were definitely enough to defeat the 7th Cavalry, and then. If anybody has relatives that were in the 7th Cavalry and I offended you, I'm sorry, but that was too good of a joke to pass up at the time. So, but thanks for bringing that. This is a great one. And yeah, this is from third base. I think third base is what? Isn't it Chicago area, I think? Where are they at again?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
that one's been in the bunker for a while. So dug it out to bring it up here.
And he's even got it labeled so he doesn't forget. As you get older, you put it on the back so you know to remember that. But
I have a nice little collection of those downstairs, so I got to put tape on them all so I know what's what.
Oh, they're still so good, though. That's a good one. That's a good one. So we'll get back to you. All right. I mean, see, Jason, he's important, not the whiskey. See that we're back to you, back to Matt. So you're at Wainwright. You got your platoon leader time, so 3 time, and you get ready to deploy again. This time to Afghanistan, right?
Yeah. So our S4 at the time had some medical stuff come up. The HHT XO then moved into the S4 position, like within weeks of deployment. And suddenly they were like, hey, you're the HHT XO now. You're leaving in 2 weeks. I was supposed to be a month out. Right. Like, you're leaving in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, cool. I'd rather be an XO.
Right. So HHT, headquarters troop, instead of like some people know mostly company, but the Cav, they still talk in troops, which is the same thing as a company. So the XO job is one of my favorite jobs, though.
It's fun. I like it a lot.
Troop.
Yeah. And I had a lot of XO time.
Yeah.
I had over 30 months of XO time, I think, between there and when I moved down to Benning. It was a lot of fun.
So you take over HHTXO, then you guys deploy to Afghanistan, to Kandahar province.
Yep.
What year? That was 2011?
April 2011.
Okay. So now, how many other coalition units were there with you then? Or was it still mainly?
Our squadron was actually sliced off, and at the time, I forget who we were under initially, but at one point we fell under 4th ID for a while, and then we fell under maybe 10th Mountain for a while after that because we were kind of out away from the rest of the brigade.
Right.
A lot of the rest of the brigade was over like in Panjway and kind of around that area. So we were.
But in 2011, there was still a lot of coalition forces doing Kandahar, though, right? Were you stationed at Kandahar?
I was out at Fob Frontenac,
okay,
out in Shawaikat, kind of east of Kandahar, out in the middle of nowhere in Kandahar province still,
right.
And out in the middle of the desert. The last 4 months of the deployment, we got replaced there by I don't even remember who moved in there, but then we went to CAF, Kandahar Airfield,
okay,
and did the last 4 months basking in the smell of the shit pond.
Yeah, if you've never been to Kandahar, it's a great place. There's actually Artie Lang was like a famous comedian. He used to be on Howard Stern, and he went years ago to Kandahar for a USO thing, and he talked about, there's a skit of him talking about the shit pond. So if you don't know what we're talking about, Kandahar has an open like shit pond. The septic. It's awful. I mean, if the wind is blowing, I mean, and when I was there, that you were still allowed to run around it, like. For PT, like was on the board, like you run around it. And it was just the worst thing. And I actually, when I was there, they were talking about Artie Lang. When I was there, the Romanians were there with us, and a Romanian soldier got bet to like try to swim across this thing, and he ended up getting like medically evac out of it. The guy almost died from it. It was awful, disgusting. But he actually was. They told that story. It was like, I mean, it was and we're not exaggerating. We're telling you it's an open.
Oh yeah, it's literally just.
How big do you think it was? It was pretty
2 acres maybe. It was big. That was a lot of shit.
Literally a lot of shit. But I think I think that's when you're always trying to test veterans if they've ever really been to anywhere. If anybody ever tells you that they were in Kandahar at the airfield, you need to somehow work in the shit pond. If they don't know what you're talking about, that's definitely stolen valor. They're lying their asses off because you never forget that.
No.
Yeah, I think it was. That's why.
Make sure you file your PACT Act claim while you're at it.
That was so awful. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, I was there. I left in 2003. So I mean, back when you guys had it nicely. The ship pond. We had all kinds of like.
Well, I'm sure.
Burger King.
Yeah, that stuff was all there. They were closing some of that stuff down. The Canadians left while I was there.
Okay.
But there was a Tim Hortons like way on the other end, and there was a Burger King and a TGI Fridays and all kinds of stuff like the Green Beans coffee shops. If you remember those, like. How tasty those were.
Yeah, but it's better than what we had, which was nothing.
Yeah. There was a ton of stuff. There was they had the boardwalk with all the restaurants, and there was like a big giant soccer field in the middle. So you go through there and people be playing soccer or field hockey or whatever every day. You're like, don't these people have work to do?
That's crazy to have all that. But TGI Fridays, I would have never.
Oh yeah.
That's nuts. Like a little sit down and just go,
Yeah. It's like you're going down to Polaris here.
With no alcohol though.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And no guns over here.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's not true. There's probably guns on Polaris, but like anywhere else. So you come back from that deployment, take a little time as a motor officer.
Yeah.
So that's exciting stuff, right? Dealing with strikers.
It wasn't very exciting at all, actually. I was just trying to go moose hunting.
There you go. You got to have motives. It freed up your time to do that?
Yeah. I made friends with a few of the mechanics at the time, and there were 3 of those guys that I'd gone out with. That was probably around Labor Day. Since we were home within the last few months, we kind of got some long weekends and stuff. So we went out past a place called Chena Hot Springs, if you've ever been to Fairbanks, and took 4-wheelers and went about 9 miles back into the middle of nowhere and hunted moose back there. Didn't do any good the first weekend, but the next weekend we went back to the same spot. And that's where I killed my moose.
Oh, nice. How big?
It wasn't very big. It was a small moose. The antler spread was only 32 inches on it. And we processed it and split the meat 4 ways. And we each only walked out with 55 pounds of processed meat.
Oh, nice.
We did not dry age. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we had a discussion about that, about dry aging. I don't think that was a thing back then, but.
Hung it in a shed.
Dry aged moose. I don't know what that would be like, but
it's probably delicious.
It's not Wagyu, but I mean,
I don't know. Moose is the best meat I've ever had.
So did you keep the any of the head? Did you get taxes out or anything?
No, I got the antlers.
Okay,
they're just in a closet in my house.
where all the stuff before you get married and it's cool.
Yeah,
where all the
right.
cool bachelor stuff goes, like the closet, the crawl space.
Yep.
Because we were just talking about, he brought a saber for everybody that didn't know. That's the symbol of the Calvary Officer, and we're asking him where you had it, and you just said you had it down in the basement somewhere, like hidden away. No one ever sees it. You know what I mean?
Basement's not finished yet. Someday I'll put it on display.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's like that. You have you accumulated, you thought was so cool, especially military stuff. Like I used to love, like on my bed was remember the old poncho liners, the camo,
the Whoopee.
Yeah, that was the best blanket ever. And I remember, like, before I got married, I had that thing, and it's always on the bed. I mean, it was like made on the bed, and then like as soon as you get married, that thing's gone. I don't even know where it's at. I had like 8 of them. They're all gone.
Yeah, I figured an infantry guy would hang on to that for
they're
life.
the best.
It's the best blanket ever made.
They're somewhere everywhere. You got to be able to have those and have fun with them. And like,
I bought one off Amazon after I got out of the Army because I had to turn mine in.
But I did the real one. What?
Yeah, bought a Whoopee off Amazon.
Did you keep it and tell me you lost it and just pay the $35? Like
I did that with some other things.
Yeah, I
had my Kevlar, I had my salt pack.
My M4, I lost that too. Can you guys charge that for me? No. But now that I'm thinking about that, I gotta find that poncho line. I think I
took mine to the hospital when my kids were born. It's a perfect little hospital blanket.
Jana, I want to know where the hell the poncho liner is. All right. Which is cool. So you stay there a little bit longer, and then you make another PCS, which I thought was interesting. You actually PCS to brag before your
Benning.
Benning too. Yeah. Before you did your maneuver course, then, right?
Yeah.
Because that's unusual. Because usually your first
PCS, it was a little unusual. So with the thyroid disease, like in high school, I lost a bunch of weight. After they ablated it, of course, I always gained a lot of weight. So my whole time in the Army, it was like a 50-pound roller coaster. And so I didn't get promoted to first lieutenant on time. Mm-hmm. So it set me back. And so actually when I got to Afghanistan in 2011, I had already been in for over 2 years at that point. I was still a second lieutenant, usually promoted 18 months. So I had to get to Afghanistan and work out in a prison gym with all the Afghan security guards because I didn't want to go to the regular gym because it was lit up like the 4th of July in the middle of the desert at night. Right. So I lost a bunch of weight and got promoted to first lieutenant there, but then I was behind for a captain as well. And so my branch manager at the time, actually, he like set me back from year group 2008 to 2010, which was kind of doing me a favor because it put me back in. It didn't make it look bad, right? That I hadn't promoted on time. And so then they had to find something to do with me. And so I PCS down to Fort Benning and took over an XO job down in 515 Cav, training, basic training and AIT for Cav Scouts.
It's a fun job, though, no?
Training baby scouts. Yeah, it was fun.
Training baby scouts. That's a good way to put it. That's a fun job, because I think it's an interesting career path to talk about. You go from, there's not many people that have those leadership experiences in both like a line company and then, line platoon, and then be able to go back to basic NIT. It's usually like the progression is different. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you do that for a little bit, then you actually go to I look it up. They actually call it a different name. Now it's a lot of M's in there, isn't it? Like a
lot of C's, MCCC, Maneuver Captain's Career Course. So they put us in. They put the armor and the infantry guys all together for that at that point.
Right. So now they're all together at Benning. So you did that, and then you graduate from there from your MCCC course, MCCCCC. No, your captain's career course. We'll say it that way. It's easier for everybody to understand. And then you actually try to go to Fort Hood, and they tell you no.
Yeah.
And send you to beautiful Fort Bliss.
That's right. Yeah. So my wife was trying to get into school. I don't know, man. The branch manager lied to me. Typical, right? But my wife was trying to get into school in San Antonio at the time, so I wanted to go to Hood because I knew that'd probably be the closest bet. And I also thought, who's not going to tell an armor officer? Who's going to tell an armor officer they can't go to Hood, right? It's literally the home of the Cav. And so, sure shit, they told me I couldn't go to Hood, and they sent me to Bliss, and they tricked me into it too. They said that the command queues at Bliss were really short. The dude was like, "Oh yeah, command queues at Bliss are like 6 months. You'll go out there and you'll be in command in 6 months." Right. Well, I went out there and they put me with the unit. Second was with 2-1, 2nd Brigade, 1st Armor. Was the unit that did the NIE, which is like the testing of new equipment that the Army is thinking about fielding. Right. And so they're going to the field every 6 months for 3 weeks at a time, testing all this equipment, and they weren't deployable. Right. They were not a deploying unit at the time. And I would have rather deployed again.
Did your branch manager call and be like, gotcha?
He should have, because he convinced me. He's like, we had this long conversation, and he's like, oh yeah, you should put your top 3 in there. We take pride in trying to get somebody one of their top 3. So I think I had like Hood, Germany, and then I stuck Bliss in there because he told me the command cues were short. And I got out there, and they're like, oh yeah, you could be on brigade staff for like a year, and then you're going to go down to the squadron or battalion staff for like 6 months, and then you get a company. And I'm like,
you'll be 45 before you get a company.
Yeah. So yeah, he definitely got me on that one. But
let's start looking at your try and be like, he got his first branch, he got his top 3. Like, we'll just keep messing with it. If the military takes care of you one time, that's the next time they're going to get you somehow. That's how it always works. Someone's going to get you. And the branch, to make fun of branch managers, they do their best. It's I don't think they do it on purpose, but sometimes they.
Well, I mean, there are certain places nobody wants to go.
Yeah,
somebody has to go there. But we actually liked Bliss once we got out there.
Is that what they brainwashed you to say now? Is that
No, we enjoyed it. We had good neighbors. We're in a good neighborhood off post, and we had good neighbors that were not military people. They're just regular local people there. And surprisingly, being out in the desert, it turns out that the duck hunting there was pretty decent.
Really?
Yeah.
And Bliss, really?
Yeah. You got to go outside the wall, right? There's a wall that divides the U.S. and Mexico.
Which is really close. We talked about that before. It's like right there. It's
right there, yeah. And it's basically there's like 150 meters of land from the wall to the Rio. And you can hunt that. It's all Bureau of Land Management land. And the river's right there. And since it's really the only water around, there's plenty of birds there, ducks and doves and stuff. So you could go out there in the morning and shoot doves. They'd be leaving the U.S., flying south into Mexico. And at night, you'd go out there in the evening, and they'd be flying north again. So it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Sometimes I had to send my dog into Mexico to get my bird.
Oh, man.
It's pretty fun.
Is that Opie you're talking about?
Yeah.
Man, Opie's been breaking law. So if there's anybody who heard that, we can turn him into somebody who's broke the law. But how old is he now, Opie?
He'll be 9.
Not to say, do you see the picture? He's always like, you always see a picture of Matt. What I love is he always has Opie with him when you have the ducks. He's doing your bird hunting. It's always awesome to see him. And we were talking before, like I find nothing. I have 2 dogs. There's nothing good about them at all. So I would love to have a dog that could actually do something besides just bark at people who come over. And it would be. I'm so jealous of you. I mean,
he's pretty cool. He's gonna be 9 in January.
So did you buy him already trained, or did you train him?
No, I did most of it myself. I sent him. There were 2 summers. I have a buddy that's a pro trainer. I sent him off for 3 months one summer and 2 months another summer when he was probably, I don't know, that was maybe 5 years ago.
Did the buddy charge you? Or is it like,
yeah, it's his job.
Is it expensive to do that?
Yeah, it's pretty pricey. But he was.
You can say it unless is your wife listening. She could tell you or not.
No, she knows. It was before we had kids. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah,
it was like $600 a month back then.
That's not bad though. That's
more now. Straight prices.
Yeah,
it's inflation.
The whole.
But no, what I sent him off because.
Who's your buddy? Can we send our dogs? They're not bird dogs, but maybe is it too late to teach them when they're too old? It might not work.
To hunt? Yeah, he probably wouldn't take.
I'll just give him $600 and just say, Shay, there was a hunting accident. Neither of them made it back.
Oh my gosh. I can't tell that story.
No. You got her now. Come on.
An army buddy who wanted to kill his dog because it bit his kid.
Oh. Yeah, we don't want to tell that story.
No, we don't want to tell that story.
Definitely a good call. We'll tell that after we get off the air.
Yeah, we're not going to tell that on the internet.
Yeah, probably not. And now, which is exciting, I think have we confirmed if is it broadcasting on? It is. So this is some good news. It's actually the first broadcast we're talking about that's actually broadcasting now on the Facebook and also on YouTube. There's a YouTube page. We'll post that after the this broadcast. We want to just make sure it worked. Josh wasn't doing his job early today, so I had to take over and do that. So obviously it worked because I took over. So we'll send a post later on with the link to get there. So this is I'm doing like a commercial break now. I gotta feel like I'm taking over now. So, but the link you can actually send people to the YouTube link, and that way, if they don't have Facebook, they can take part. They can listen to the broadcast. You can actually listen to the broadcast yourself if you're already in the group. So we'll post that out there. And it's kind of exciting that you now don't have to have Facebook. Like all the old people like my dad that have Facebook, you can actually listen to it now and whatever. So congratulations on being number 16. Look at that.
Yeah.
Tip of the spear there, you know.
Broadcast on the YouTubes.
On the YouTube, yeah. And the Facebook, you know, it's awesome. So you're down there at beautiful Fort Bliss. I thought the only good hunting in Texas was like boar and a pig and then deer, like those huge deer. Like that's what I learned when I moved down there.
Well,
the second time, there's so much good deer hunting down south.
The deer are like high fence ranch deer.
Yeah, but
people pay a bunch of money to go in it.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have them all. But I mean, they're pretty. I mean, everyone. It's a big industry down there.
Yeah, it's big.
I mean, people come in from everywhere to.
There's probably some debate about fair chase.
Yeah, they have like 30, 300-foot fences to keep them in. They feed them. They're all like jack deer.
But yeah, there's
I'm not kidding. Like some of these places,
enormous.
I'm not. Am I joking? They're not that big.
No, they're big.
They're like, but
there's lots of hunting in Texas.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of stuff down there.
I've actually never been hunting, so. That's one of the things I just didn't grow up with it, and like I feel like the hunting is like the military. Like you have it in your blood. Someone in your family has taught it to you, and it's passed down and things like that. But I'm gonna have to challenge you. I want to go. The only kind of hunting I would want to do is bird hunting. Yeah. Like I think sitting. Number one, I cannot sit in a tree in the winter hunting deer, not talking to anybody or myself.
It's kind of boring.
Without falling asleep, I would literally be asleep. Like the big jack deer can come by me. I feel like, why be sleeping? We're just drinking a shit ton of whiskey. So I feel like bird hunting is a little bit more. You got to be more aware.
I have a picture somewhere of my wife sleeping in a deer stand. I took her out in Georgia one time when we were at Benning. She's just racked out in the deer stand.
We always hear that with all the deer hunters. I love. You watch with bird hunters. You guys are surprised. Everything's happening, but you have deer hunters. Like a friend of mine, he goes deer hunting. Like I've been here 8 years. He's been here 8 years. All 8 years, he's like, I didn't shoot anything. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, oh, we just go in the woods with our friends and we drink a lot. Get away from it. But I'm like, why do we call it? Why don't you just go camping? He's like, oh no, we're hunting. Like I pass up all these deer. I'm like,
gotta go to deer camp.
Like, I'm like, what are we talking about here? I'm like, I feel like a duck, so you could just be, firing off the shotgun.
Well, what's nice about it is it is more social because I get bored deer hunting too. I don't want to just sit in a tree in the cold by myself.
Right.
But with the bird hunting especially, I really enjoy the dog work.
Right.
And so, I mean, I feel guilty. Like if I go out to hunt deer or turkeys or something, I don't take the dog. I almost feel guilty about it.
Does he like give you the look too? Like he knows what you're doing?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's like, you
I put the camo on and then I walk out without him. He's like,
you son of a bitch. I know where you're going.
Yeah. But with the duck hunting and stuff, it's easy because, I mean, it's not easy. You won't say that. It's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's an expensive hobby. But, I mean, you could sit there and BS until birds start working, right? So you're like, oh, shit, here comes the birds. Like, we got to be quiet and hide now.
Yeah, because I always go back to when I went to my officer advanced course and then or captain's career course and then CASQ. Did you guys still go to CASQ at Fort Leavenworth? Mm-hmm. So we had to go there. My buddy, we drove together, and he was a huge hunter. And we were going out to Kansas.
Riley was one of those.
Yeah, Kansas. Yeah, for hunting. Yeah. Is that for hunting or for like
Yeah, I wanted to get stationed at Riley. It was one of those top three. So I think it was Hood, Riley, Bliss.
But we go to Kansas, and like he picks me up, and he was driving his SUV, and there on the top he had like 50 duck decoys in the top, and then in the car we had like 7 shotguns and all this kind of stuff. So as soon as we get to Leavenworth, we were like checking all that stuff, and in our room, we're staying in a room together, all these ducks. And I remember he would get up at like the crack of dawn, go duck hunting. And I remember one morning looking in our little fridge, and there's like 3 little mallard ducks in there dead. But I'm like, and I always wanted to go. I was like, take me to go. And he's like, no, you cannot go. You don't have a license. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like, I just want to go, But maybe we can work it in. Maybe
I'll take anybody.
Maybe
you still have to get a license, but
Opie can treat me. I just want to go. I think I just want to see it, and
Oh, yeah, we do that.
So, it's your favorite hunting? Is it duck hunting or bird hunting?
Yeah, duck hunting is pretty fun. Yeah.
Over moose hunting. Like, I mean, you hunted. What other animals have you hunted? You got humans, but you got
deer, moose, deer, turkeys, ducks, geese, pheasants. Woodcock, grouse, quail, stuff like that.
So duck's still the favorites.
Would say so, yeah.
What's the tastiest?
Moose was the tastiest. Moose was pretty good.
Never had moose before.
Yeah, almost has like a sweet flavor to it. It's pretty good.
Is that because, have you had it since or just that one time?
Just then.
Nice. Maybe it's like whiskey, though. Your palate's changed. You might not find it as,
Might be better if I dry aged it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a little creme brulee when you hit it, when you eat the moose. So you're at Bliss. You stay there for a little bit, and then never get in command, but you re-hurt your back, right?
Yeah, so I was there about a year. Again, I was in the Brigade 3 shop, just rowing, hating life, doing frag hills and stuff, and then hurt my back again. Ironically, I told you like my whole life in the Army was like a 50-pound roller coaster, up and down, losing weight, getting hurt, gaining weight, back and forth, back and forth. And so I actually was with a buddy. He and I were going to the gym to lift before PT. And I had a brigade commander at the time who the guy was just an absolute stud. Like he was Ranger Battalion, company commander and everything, and just an absolute stud. And he would be in there doing that. He and the XO. The XO was a stud too, but those guys would be in there lifting before PT. So we'd be in there lifting before PT like, oh, man, we're getting points right now.
Look at you, old man. Look how strong we are now.
Well, no, I just mean like getting brownie points, like these guys are definitely going to get company soon. But, I ended up hurting my back again, lifting, doing that stuff in the mornings, and ended up having a second back surgery and got out of the Army after that. Took a medical discharge and got out of the Army after that.
So that was that on you, or did the Army say, hey, you're done?
A little of each. Yeah. I kind of knew I was ready to get out at that point because being on brigade staff sucks. And I had a job lined up back home at that point. Right. My mom was an Edward Jones advisor too. And so when I got home from Afghanistan in 2012, she started kind of trying to plant that seed in my head. She was introducing me to people that were advisors that were other veterans and stuff. And at that point in 2015, I started kind of looking at that a little harder after, 3 years after she tried to talk me into doing it.
That's how it works normally. You don't listen to your parents.
No, I was still having fun in the Army, still having a good time.
I'm about to turn 50. I still listen to my dad maybe 25% of the time on a good week.
but I had an opportunity at home where a guy was retiring out of an office, and I was going to be able to walk in and take.
So you've been doing that since 2015, then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the end of 2015 or early 16. Yeah.
So his dad's helping him out again. Again, that comes back to the thank you.
Yeah.
I thought it's emotional support, but now it's moving with the numbers. He's helping here with the numbers and stuff.
Okay. He's an engineer. He's good with numbers. I'm not.
This is good, yeah. So what's interesting, your original degree was in international studies, right?
Yeah, international affairs.
Is that why is your mom the reason why you started getting into financial stuff, or did you already have a?
Yeah, so I never had any interest in that at all. I didn't want to sit at a desk. I didn't want to do that. I'm not a math guy at all. I'm not a numbers guy. I don't like that part of it at all. But the company is a good company to work for, and basically my own boss. I don't report to anybody. That's why I could leave work early and come here today. Right. Nobody's bugging me about that. And as long as you want to work hard and do the right thing for people, nobody's going to bug you.
So you're doing everything. You're doing investment, life insurance. You're doing all that.
Yeah. Dropped the life insurance app today.
Yeah. So the problem is somebody right now, one of your clients is like, where's he at? Because the stock market, I don't think did very well today, but that's normal right now. But
yeah, the market, I do worry about that. Like I was kind of joking with somebody at the gym the other day about this. I was like, man, anytime I go out of town, either the market drops or I lose a client, like they die.
Wow, dude.
They're like, you are going out of town. I was like,
I'm not going to be your client, by the way. If you try to give them their card, they're like, no, I'm good, buddy.
Yeah, I'm good. Don't need that. You're going on vacation? Nah, call me when you get back.
That's cool. So you're doing it all. So do you work with a smaller office, or how does it work?
Yeah, I got an office by myself with one office administrator. Her name is Brittany. Okay. She's great. She started back in December.
Shout out to Brittany.
Yep, shout out to Brittany. She started back in December, and she's been really good. She picked everything up pretty quickly.
Nice. Does Opie get to come?
No.
No.
He's been in the office once or twice, but Edward Jones doesn't like office dogs. It's a real bummer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No guns in the office. No booze in the office.
I mean, the guns, like the booze.
No dogs in the office. I'm like, man, I thought this was like Wolf of Wall Street. What are we doing here?
That's a great movie, isn't it? What's even great about that movie is when you research it, like when you're like, this has to be all fake, you know what I mean? And so much of the crazy shit is true. You're like, oh my God, this is nuts.
I've heard stories from people from other companies that were like doing this stuff in the like 80s and 90s. I'm like, oh, that's definitely Wolf of Wall Street. A little different now.
That is a great movie.
A little more calm and Edward Jones in Chillicothe, Ohio.
Well, thanks. For some reason, I feel like helicopters are flying in. You got your yacht.
Yeah.
You got your duck boat. You're like, come on, guys, let's go. But,
Copperhead.
And the reason it's like that is because the reason it is because those guys in the 80s and 90s, what they were doing.
Now it's just like the Army. It's mass punishment. Everything's way over regulated.
I mean, the dog thing is kind of rough here. I mean, I think Edward Judge, you got to lighten up the dogs. It's 2022.
Yeah.
Opie's behaved.
One of my buddies is an attorney. Is his own practice. He's always got his dog at the office. I'm super jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I think Opie could you could bring some people in,
Yeah, you think.
especially after you tell them, hey guys, just want to tell you, you're not gonna believe this. I'm a financial advisor, but every time I go on vacation, somebody dies or they lose all their money. Like, so Opie is your only hope.
Yeah,
to be
able just here for the dog.
Opie seems so nice. If he's sticking with them, I gotta sue him.
He's very trusting. Matter of fact, yesterday my 3-year-old was messing with him. I don't know what he was doing because the 1-year-old was in the high chair eating dinner and the 3-year-old was running around like crazy before bedtime. And I was in the other room doing something, and the 3-year-old was just running back and forth. And I was like, quit. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? And then I heard the dog start like squealing. And I ran out. I was like, what are you doing to him? And he comes running back in, and he's like, he was like, Opie scared me. I was like, well, yeah, because you're hurting him. He said, he almost bit me. I was like, he should have bit you. Like, what are you doing? Leave the dog alone. Go to bed.
I love that dog more than I love you. That dog is going to be longer than
yeah, like 3 times longer.
Almost the same time as your wife, though.
So we got together right after I came home from Afghanistan.
Okay.
It was 2012. And then we got the dog in 2014. So about 2 years later.
But way longer than the kids, way longer than Ruxin and Fletcher. You need to tell them like,
yeah. So
they don't talk back.
He doesn't.
They listen to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes. It doesn't get any better, dude. They get to the stage where they listen to you, and then now they don't listen to you at all. So it's like, yeah, it's normal.
With the 3-year-old, everything is no or why. I'm like, yes, and because I told you so.
That doesn't help. It
doesn't work. It's still why.
Well, they learned that from, I think, the same thing we say to our spouses most of the time too. Like when our spouse to do something, no, and why do I have to do that? Or why can't I do that? That's better. The reason why. Why can't I go there Sunday? Which is cool. So you've been doing that. So I mean, obviously you like dealing with people. Then obviously, if you're doing the financial advisor thing, I mean, and what's your favorite thing about that? You said you didn't like the numbers, which again,
I don't like the numbers.
He's not doing it really good. He's good at numbers, but he does not like numbers, is what he should have said. So what's your what drives you to, you think?
I mean, there's definitely the opportunity to help people, right, and change lives. And so one of my favorite things is like when a young kid comes in and wants to start saving money and they want to get started, 21, 22-year-old kid right out of school, and they don't have a lot. They're just trying to get started and they want to save, $25 a month or whatever and invest it. And I like that. Like, I mean, it doesn't help me build my business. I don't make money off of that, but I know that kid's going to be well off someday, right? Like you're getting a good start. You're doing things the right way. This is really going to make a difference for you. And I just love that.
Yeah. I think it goes back to this, like the serving and helping people. It's the same way. It's a weird helping along. And I'm going to have you talk to Ben before you leave today.
Yeah.
Don't use any of the precursors that you said before. Let me do the talking. I'll introduce you. You just give him the card.
Not going out of town for a couple months. Say your goodbyes.
I can't keep going back. That's a circle. So we brushed over. I think now you're back in your job now, doing what you're loving. So I think one of the big stories that you've been a guy who's always been helping people out. We talked about it a little bit. You still volunteer. You've been volunteering with a bunch of places where you're a board member. What were they? A lot of different ones. The Scioto Valley Ducks Unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? I mentioned that's just like massive duck hunting.
No, Ducks Unlimited is actually a conservation organization.
Oh, shoot. I went totally wrong. That's why I said
wrong way.
I'm all about it. I thought this was like Kill Ducks Unlimited, like Duck Hunter.
No, like Make Ducks Unlimited so we can kill them forever.
Yeah, I need a better name than that. Come on.
But it's actually an international organization, pretty much all in North America. And they might have chapters in Europe too. I don't know. But I'm the chairman for the Scioto Valley chapter down in Ross County. And basically, we have a couple events every year. I started a golf scramble a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now. And then we do a dinner in the fall just to try and raise money for conservation. They do a lot of work up around Lake Erie and a lot of work up in Canada, restoring marshes. And people don't understand that most of our marshes have been like plowed under for farmland pretty much all across the whole country. And they don't understand what implications that really has for like clean water, for example, right?
Right.
All those marshes serve a purpose. They help filter things out of the water, chemicals and things like that out of the water before it goes back in the ground in the water table. So it's not just about ducks and geese.
So you went a total different way. I thought you're like, oh, I'm all about getting the marshes. More ducks means more ducks I can kill.
I mean, I think that's part of what it is like waterfowl hunting for generations to come.
Yeah. No.
If you preserve their habitat, then theoretically their numbers should increase, and
100%.
they should have more places to eat, more places to nest, and more ducks later on.
And so also board member of the Calvary Lutheran Church.
Mm-hmm. Calvary, not cavalry, by the way.
I don't know if I say that. First Capital Rotary.
Yep.
And then Rolling Thunder.
Yeah. So a lot
of different stuff. Are you doing all this together or like? Because I thought I was a busy guy. If you're on all these boards right now,
man, I'm too busy. I was pretty much doing all that at the same time. And Scioto Society, I think, was on that list too, which is the organization that puts on Tecumseh down in Chillicothe. If you've never seen that, you should. It's pretty cool.
We're getting about a thumbs up about that. It's like
yeah.
Are you starring in it?
You guys seen it? Yeah. I've been in it by accident. That's a funny story too. But yeah, I was doing all that stuff at one time. That was most of that was before I had kids.
Right.
I mean, I say most of it, like most of it's actually still going on.
Yeah.
The Rolling Thunder chapter actually folded because we couldn't retain enough membership in our chapter down there. And we didn't have enough people to show up to meetings and support it.
Right.
But that was kind of fun while it lasted. We did a lot of good work for the local veterans. We put on a big fancy Christmas dinner for the vets from all the local homes, and the VA would bus a couple loads of guys to this dinner that we'd put on, and we'd have a nice meal for them. And then Santa Claus would show up, and we'd have some gift bags for them and stuff like that they could have for Christmas. And for a lot of those guys, like that was the only Christmas they got.
Right.
So that was always really heartwarming to see that. I was really disappointed when that chapter kind of went under. But the other stuff's still kind of going on. I'm still chairing the Ducks Unlimited chapter. I've actually started working on the state committee now for Ducks Unlimited for Ohio. I'm just kind of new to that, overseeing a couple other chapters. I'm still on the board for Scioto Society. I'm still on the council for the church. I'm still too busy.
Right. I think it's funny you said, because I think one of the favorite things I always like to complain is how busy I am. And then I realize that all the stuff I'm doing is stuff I put on myself.
Self-inflicted.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I'm so busy. I can't have time. Like, well, my wife's like, why are you doing that? Because I enjoy that. Like, why are you doing that? Because I enjoy that. So I have found not just to to not talk about the non-veterans, but I do find that a lot of veterans, I think it's a way for us to give back. We're always trying to find a way to reconnect back to that thing where we feel like we're making an impact. We're helping somebody. If like you talked about helping that one kid to save $25 out of the first paycheck. I mean, that makes you feel good. I always feel good about the things I'm doing. And it is funny to watch a lot of veterans, how they get themselves out there. And the ones that aren't, you definitely should. I mean, there's a ton of organizations that need people that have seen the world in some different places, and a lot of veterans actually need it. Some of the veterans have that exact opposite of, they don't want to do anything with anybody because they feel isolated. But you got to sometimes, break that, go out and meet these people, because they're in a lot of these organizations are a ton of people that are the same as us.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
not armor cav guys, but it's all right. I mean,
at least in Chillicothe, it's a lot of the same people supporting all the different organizations too. So I kind of look around, and like when I see people that aren't necessarily involved in anything, they're just living their own day-to-day lives. I kind of wonder, like, how do you do that? Because I don't know. There's just something, I feel like there's something in me that's like, I got to make things better,
Yeah, and that's the thing I've always struggled too. Like, with you bring that up, is like whenever I talk, we're talking about specifically about veterans, I think that's the idea of the podcast is, I think it's crazy that you do hear a lot of these veterans that they go from being part of teams and large, small teams, large teams, and then when they get out, all of a sudden they just want to be by themselves. And I can understand that, because a lot of the times, depending how long you're in, you were told what to do. The bad thing about the military is you actually were with people that you didn't like a lot of times, so you had no choice. Like, you're gonna spend 8 months with this person and you don't like them, but you still have to do your job and get along. But then I think a lot of them, once a lot of us, like when we get out, it's like, I'm done dealing with people. I'm only gonna surround myself with
whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey is always good. Yeah, but whiskey's not always your friend. It can be bad. It can be very bad. No, but it's important. I think that definitely, if you're a veteran, there's a ton of organizations get out there. I know that's the number one thing I think is bad for us is those ones that do isolate themselves. It's not good. So there's a ton of organizations to look into, and like I said, you'll be surprised who you find. You might find someone that you can connect with on a different level, hunting, whiskey, whatever. That's what I love about bourbon groups, how quickly a lot of us have, we share a common goal. We don't there's some of us that definitely don't like each other, which is fine, but we do have a common goal. A lot of the time we have something that we like. And then what you end up finding over time is that you find the people that you connect with because they say the same values and things like that. So,
and then like 4 years later, you come to Columbus and meet them.
Yeah, for the first time. Yeah, he's been to my house probably like 5 times picking up bottles.
Porch pickups.
Never met him. I've seen him on the camera, but I've been like, because I was thinking about that yesterday when we talked. I'm like, I don't think I've met him at like a pickup or like anything. I'm like, and if you don't know where Chillicothe is, we don't even know where that's at in Ohio either. If you're not from Ohio, I don't even. It's south. We don't.
I think it's in Missouri somewhere actually.
We always make it, but it is funny. There are people that and it's not that far away. We make a joke, but
it's about an hour. Yeah, it's about an hour straight south of Columbus.
Yeah. So, but everybody acts like it's 100 miles away. That's my favorite thing. If someone's like, "So coffee," and then meanwhile, everybody you got to drive through there to go to the promised land, Kentucky. So, but everybody acts like, "Oh, we don't know what you're talking about down there." So, if you don't know what we're talking about, most people in Ohio don't know either. So,
apparently there's Chillicothe, Missouri, though.
I've actually been to Chillicothe a couple times.
Yeah. Missouri?
Yeah, no, for Ohio baseball. We're down for baseball.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I've been down there. So not to deliver your bottles, definitely not. I don't deliver. You got to pick up. Which is fine. So like you talked about some stuff like I kind of we're gonna go back in time from where we're at now. So obviously you're getting a theme here with Matt. He's dedicated to his community, his church, veterans. Restocking the ponds, the marshes, so that he can kill more ducks. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, but I don't know what you guys are hearing. But he's actually there to restore the water tables and whatever. But there's a story that I think that's like
we don't really need water anyway.
What do we need fresh water for? We got bottled water. What do you need? What do you need it from a marsh for? So I think we should before we get, because I think we're where I'm going next. This is kind of a huge story, right? Yeah. I think it's a long story, right?
It is a long story.
So I think we should definitely go to the second whiskey. Are you ready to have the second featured whiskey, and then we'll get into into the main discussion?
Yeah.
So our second featured whiskey is we're going to go with another Buffalo Trace product. I went with that one for a couple reasons. Number one, again, we had a member who donated some bottles, so he donated this with us, and actually it pairs pretty nicely with the proof that we're having now that you brought. I didn't picture it to be like a low proof 94 proof guy. I thought we were going to get into some high octane stuff, but I remembered you're a cab off
100, 110 range. You drink more that way,
which is good. Yeah, good point. That's a good point. So the second bottle we're going to feature is actually another barrel pick. It's an Eagle Rare from Buffalo Trace. A lot of people, if you don't know who Buffalo Trace is, you probably shouldn't be in bourbon at this point. Or you should probably forget about Buffalo Trace if you're in bourbon, because it just causes a lot of it's probably one of the most popular brands that's out there. So Buffalo Trace is in Frankfort, Kentucky. It's been known by a ton of names for a while now, since it was actually founded years ago. It's one of the few distilleries that stayed producing bourbon during Prohibition for medicinal purposes. It was bought by Sazerac in 1992. And Eagle Rare is one of their prime products that most people know about, other than Buffalo Trace, which we talked about Buffalo Trace a few episodes back. But what's interesting about Eagle Rare is actually the brand, bottling, branding, distilling was actually owned by several different companies before it was actually sold to Seagram's in 1989, and then eventually sold to Sazerac in 1992. It originally was 101 proof, which is a good proof. If you ever see an old Eagle Rare with 101 proof and it doesn't look like this bottle, you should definitely get it. You should definitely get it and hide it or drink it. So this is pretty phenomenal, the old stuff. But this is what's great about this is you haven't seen. I brought a couple different bottles out to show it, but like a lot of bottles, they've changed their branding over time. I don't have one of the older bottles that we're talking about, but if you look back a few years back. This is a smaller bottle, but they used to have the age statement right around the top of the ring, and then they went to the phase where they had it all the way here in the back, the age state, and then they actually went to where now they've actually, this is a newer bottle that the age statement is back on the front of it to identify it. So this one's out of Cedar Town Liquor, and this is, like we said, it's 10 years old. It's actually made with mash bill number 1. So Buffalo Trace has 3 different mash bills. Mash bill 1 is a low rye mash bill. That's kind of the mash bill that everybody says is its signature taste for it. So they started. This one is, pretty popular. All these Eagle Rares, if you can find them, even the store picks are great. These is another low proofer, like you had early 90 proof. And again, this one doesn't have a mash bill that we can disclose, but we do know it's mash bill number 1. Buffalo Trace and Sazerac have never done that, but we do know it's a pretty low rye. I think they say it's less than 10% rye. So thank you. Hopefully you enjoy this one. I didn't know we had to say low proof, but thank you for the gentleman that donated the bottles. We'll continue to try to pair them with our guest bottles as they come in.
Can't go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong with Eagle Rare. I mean, the only problem with Eagle Rare now is that the price of what it is in the secondary market, and people would literally wait in line for like 4 hours to get a bottle. So it's crazy. But if you get a bottle of that, you definitely should do that. So now, are you lubed up, ready for the big story?
Yeah, I think so. I've been telling it for about a year now. So
you got it script. You got it down. You got it down to another 2 hour. Well, I knew about the story. We reconnected about it last night. You reminded me about it, but you did reach out last year, a group wherein we do fundraiser stuff, and you did reach out to that, and he had to remind me last night that I told him no. So I have to hear all this stuff. You're gonna make me feel even worse than I feel about myself after reading it about no. But there's a lot of different things that are going on. So you obviously you met someone here in Afghanistan that had a pretty big impact on you, like many of us.
Yeah.
And so that person was a former interpreter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
hopefully he's listening because he's in the group now.
He's probably working right now, but I don't know. Maybe he's watching from work. So his name is Fawad. Fawad was my interpreter. He came to us in 2011, have Fob Frontenac. The coolest part about getting a new terp was you get to name him. So he showed up and we named him Magnum, which is awesome. And so he went for that. He went by that for a long, long time. He worked for a couple other units, including the 82nd after we left. Actually got shot when he was with the 82nd. He got shot in the leg. But yeah, he was my interpreter. Our interpreter while we were there for probably 10 months. He came when we were pretty new in country. So.
Right. And so, like a lot of people, if you haven't deployed, you do, depending on the role you have in an organization. So if you generally are, like a lieutenant or platoon sergeant or captain or that type of level, you do have an interpreter if you're doing missions that are assigned to you to make sure you know what the hell you're talking about. Most of the time they help you out. So was he was he from Kandahar originally, or?
No, he was from Kabul actually,
okay.
Originally. And so they always typically try to put those people somewhere that's not home because it helps them kind of spread the risk a little bit. So if they're somewhere where they're home and the Taliban catches wind of them, the Taliban can easily target their family, right? So being from Kabul, he was working for us in Kandahar.
Which is different because the guys that were with us, all interpreters, actually were from Kandahar. They were with, at the time, the warlord worked for General Galali. And we didn't get to name them, though. When did that start? We didn't. I mean, that
they just had their regular names.
Yeah, we just called them their regular names. I mean,
oh man, we had Jack Bauer and Scorpion and Magnum. It was great.
We had
those guys were awesome.
I had Hamid wherever he's at. Like, I mean, I'm like, dude. I mean, Hamid was the man. I didn't know if I could have named him.
You could have named him.
Yeah.
Get him name tags and everything. Get him name tapes. What? Yeah.
Wow, I missed out on that. The name. There were so many good names. What about before Jack Bauer? Because I don't know if 24 was before my days, but those are great names, man. That's a good name. So he worked with you for a while. So if you've never been in country, and those that have, it's crazy.
There he is. He says, "I'm here."
Is he on? He's here. All right.
What's up, buddy?
We got to ask him. He's got a comment now. What do you wish your name was? If you could have picked your name, what would you have had your name be? That's more important. We need to know that question. But back, I was saying, a lot of people don't know. If you've never been there, you spend a lot of time with them. You create a bond that is really hard to explain.
Yeah.
And not to say like the time I was there a little bit earlier than you. So there was always, what was funny is I don't know how you guys were doing, but we weren't allowed to, when we would pick them up, they weren't allowed on Kandahar at the time. And then we would pick them up at the compound and go where we were going. And if we were going somewhere, we were never allowed to tell them where we were going until we got there, because we were still worried about the time that maybe they weren't really the most trusted people. But you start to learn about,
so we didn't really sweat that stuff. When he first came to work for us, we had to go to the compound and pick him up. I think the company was called Mission Essential Personnel at the time. It was awesome to go there because they had a monkey in a cage outside. This is right outside.
He had a monkey?
No. The company had, like, there were guards for the company, and they had a monkey in a cage. And I was always so excited to go see this monkey. But that son of a bitch was fucking mean. Like, I would try to, like, feed it peanuts and stuff, and he'd try to, like, bite your hand off. Like, that monkey was mean, man. But actually, the pictures I sent you that were of me and Fawad together, like when I was wearing all my kit and stuff, that was right outside that compound.
Oh my God! So, excuse me, everybody.
I have a picture of that monkey somewhere. I was so excited to go see that monkey.
You're excited to go see some evil monkey there.
Yeah. But I didn't know he was evil at the time. But he was even mean to the guys that, like, lived with him. He kept them there, you know.
Oh my God! I think you almost killed me, man. I don't know if I'm able to drink Igor again. It's like hitting me in a spot that I never.
But yeah, we would go and pick them up when they first come to work for us. So I was HHTXO, so most of my stuff was logistical, right? I wasn't out running a lot of combat patrols or anything. So I would run a lot of the clips, going back and forth to CAF, to Frontenac, and back and forth, and then out to some of our cops that were supporting at our outlying outposts, you know. And so we'd go over there and pick up new guys once in a while. But once we got them in, at that point, they'd already been put through the bats and hide systems. They'd already been vetted. They were vetted through the contractor, and then they were vetted through the government. So we didn't worry too much about that. They would, they lived with us and came on the fobs and rode in the strikers and stuff.
Yeah, it was completely different. Like, I could barely talk right now after that incident. So that was different. Like, there was none of that stuff where they were vetted. I think it was still where we were worried about. Like, I think one of the funny stories is I was at a FARP, and there's some stuff that happened, but I basically threatened all these local nationals that I was going to call General Galali and tell them all this kind of stuff, and that they were stealing, and said I had the cell phone number, and I didn't have a cell phone number, just to the thing. So right after that, our interpreter was like, "Do you have General Galali's number?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I do." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, whips out a cell phone. We're like, I mean, you can see it's on the cell phone. It's in the cell phone. I was like, oh my God. Like, no one had any idea they had cell phones. I remember seeing that and be like, "You've had that the whole time." I was like, "Yeah, we always have this." Like, what? I mean, you didn't know that? And you're like, "No, we didn't." And then you just automatically start running up the chain to.
Well, Fuad told me he got some pretty high, like, he just told me, like, since he's been here, that he had pretty high up connections in the Afghan government, like with Karzai's government officials and stuff. So I never knew that back then. Would have been nice to.
Yeah.
Not that it made a difference. Like,
can you just call him up? Can you text him real quick how everything's going?
Can I get an autograph? Like,
So you meet him, and then you form a bond. I think the same way. Like, even the people we had some local Afghani soldiers we worked with as well. So you kind of form a bond to him, and then all of a sudden your rotation's up.
No,
and you leave.
Yeah, so we rolled with him, or he rolled with us for the rest of the tour, and yeah, once we left, he just moved on to another unit and spent time with them for a while and got shot, and eventually moved on to other things.
We're glad you were at the 82nd, though.
Yeah.
Did they keep the name, though? That's what I want to know. They give him a different name? I mean, do you go to a different unit? Do they rename you?
I don't think so. I think he kept his name because he had name tapes and stuff. They knew who he was. He wasn't good there.
So you obviously forget about him. You never talk to him again. You just connect with him on Facebook. That's the story, right? Is that how we're ending it?
No, we stay in touch, a couple times a year on Facebook. Hey, how's it going? Whatever. Just kind of keeping up here and there, sporadically, just like anybody you're in the military with. So kept in touch on and off, and then he was going to school, and both of us eventually got married and had kids and all that good stuff. And then once the evacuation or withdrawal started back in August of last year, I reached out to him just to see how he was doing. And he's like, don't ask me that, man. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, but before that, I think you said something before that. He was trying to come to the States before that.
Oh yeah, we'd been working. Yeah.
I think that's important to do.
Sorry.
So.
Yeah, we had been working on his special immigrant visa like this whole time, from whenever I left in 2012, clear up through 2021. I'd written and rewritten 3 or 4 times letters of recommendation for him as a former supervisor. There was some sort of administrative mix-up, like many of those guys, some sort of administrative mix-up with the contractors that they worked for. And so his records were wrong or missing some sort of paperwork that he needed.
Well, I thought it was because they had a real name and then you guys were calling him a different name. So if you're writing a letter about Magnum, and they're like,
no,
we have no who the fuck
I'm
is
sure
Magnum?
if we wrote Magnum on the paperwork, then it's been like, yeah, let this dude in.
We know Magnum.
But no, so we tried to get a special immigrant visa, and I rewrote that letter. Every once in a while, he'd reach out and say, hey, I'm still going through this crap. I need another letter, and I'd basically just either find the old copy and update the date, or if I couldn't find it for whatever reason, I'd just rewrite it and send it back to him, and he'd submit it, and it would be the same shit over and over again, or his paperwork would never get completely finished. Eventually, it went as far as what's called COM approval, chief of mission approval, which is like the first or the last big step before you actually get completely approved. So you get COM approval, and then you have to go through some face-to-face interviews and everything. And then they give you that special immigrant visa, which is just for people that aided the U.S. war efforts in the Middle East.
Right.
So we went through all that. And then he was like, he had gone through the COM approval. He hadn't done the interviews. And then during the withdrawal, I don't know if you paid much attention to that or not, but
no, not at all.
They sent out. Do what?
We withdrew from there. Must have missed that.
I think we're still there.
Okay.
But, they sent out these like mass visas to people, like an email blast of visas that had no numbers on them. They had no identification information on them whatsoever. Just willy nilly. Here you go. We know you're in the pipeline. Here you go. So, they just started making copies, and then suddenly everybody had one, right? So when everybody rushed the airport, that's what they were trying to use to get in. They're trying to use these nonsense visas that were just photocopied from their neighbor next door or whatever, and it was just worthless. So he was kind of stuck in that process.
But I don't blame people to try doing that either. I mean,
no.
Even like, I'm not even back to like these being bad people, but these could be good people that like, hey, I got to take a chance to.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people that came here that like had no business coming here from a help to the government standpoint, right? So a lot of people that just were so and so's brothers, cousins, uncles, nephew that just showed up, and it was like not really sure how they got in.
Right.
They shouldn't have, but they did, and I've heard some stories from him about that also.
All right. So he obviously, did he get the initial, was he part of that broadcast visa?
Yeah, he got that bogus visa.
Okay.
He got the email, and we're kind of already in the middle of making plans to try and get him in the airport in Kabul back in August of last year. And so back up a little bit, when I messaged him and said, hey, how's it going? He's like, don't ask about my safety. Like, I'm at risk. Like, these guys are going to find me. And I'm like, okay. And all those guys that worked with us, they were trying to reach out to whoever they could to get in touch and find somebody that would help them. And so I ended up starting to talk to him. I connected with a group of other friends who had similar situations going on. Other guys from Chillicothe, actually, who had been going through ROTC at either OU or Ohio State, and similar paths. Had guys that were still stuck over there. We all kind of formed together. And if you heard anything about the digital Dunkirk movement back then, that's what they were calling it. That's what we were doing. We were part of all that, underground network of veterans and volunteers and NGO officials and everything that were working together to get these people out. And so I kind of connected with those guys, and we managed to have some other folks in our group that were still pretty well tied into current intel for what was going on the ground over there.
Right.
And, we made other connections with other people, and it just kind of branched out. It was a whole huge, crazy, like spider web of network that basically fed intel from over there back to us that we could feed to them and kind of tell them where to go and what to do and all that. We're telling them where the checkpoints were, which gates were supposed to be open when, so they could try to go to the right place. And it was a mess.
Right.
So at one point we told him to go to the airport, and I think he tried maybe twice and got turned away from Taliban checkpoints. And he sent me a video at one point that was like, he was like kind of filming it close to his chest, and there's a Taliban fighter in front of him walking down the street in front of him, just AK hanging on his side, and he's just talking, Fuad's just talking shit. He's like, this Taliban motherfucker, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the dude turns around and looks at him, and the video goes blank. And I'm like, oh no, like what's going on here? And I didn't hear from him for a while, so I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. And eventually he calls me back or whatever, and starts talking to me again. We're using WhatsApp and Signal and all that good stuff. And he ended up I don't remember what happened. Like they searched his car or something. He ended up having to go back home a couple times, and then at one point he just like went dark for 10 hours, and I didn't know where he was or what was going on. Eventually he came back on the net and was like, the Taliban came to my house and they kidnapped me. Like they called me out, like in front of my parents. They called me out. I came outside and they took me away, and they took me like into this compound, and they beat the shit out of me. And they told me I had to pay him like $100,000. He's like, I don't have $100,000. Where am I get $100,000? So he basically called his dad and his brother, and they rounded up whatever cash they could. He told him to sell his car, and they showed up with like $5,000 to give the Taliban. And the Taliban took the money, beat up his brother, insulted his dad, and made him leave, and didn't let Fuad go. And so they went to pray at one point a couple hours later. Like he was with them for like 7 hours. Called a prayer. Taliban all went out to pray, and he made a break for it and ran away and ended up making his way home. And they kind of went to his dad's friend's house and went into hiding, him and his wife and their little boy, who was 1. And so they went into hiding, and we still kept in touch. We still kept trying to get him in the airport. And this went on for 7 to 10 days. It's about 10 days, I think, start to finish. And I was sleeping like 2 hours a night. This is like an around the clock operation. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, because you're not there to put your hands on it.
Right. Yeah.
When you're over there, like it sucks, but you can control the situation.
Yeah.
When you're over here watching it from the outside, you can't do anything about it. You can provide the information, and then it's up to them on the ground. And so eventually we got him through the checkpoints. The Taliban checkpoint guys were like beating him with pipes and stuff like that. So they're not going easy on anybody. But we eventually got him through the checkpoints, the first layer checkpoints, into those massive crowds that were around the airport. If you saw any of those pictures, so they were all crammed into the crowds of hundreds of thousands of people trying to get in the airport. We tried.
Like some people legit, some people not legit, which is crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Some people had no business being there.
When I mean legit, I mean actually having. I'm still not recovered from the monkey. And, thank God it was only 9. Sorry thank God it was only 90 proof, because if it was anything higher, I don't think I'd survive. But now I know why that monkey didn't like you. No, what I mean about is that you have people that are have valid visas to get out of there, and then we're not going to get political, but it could have been handled a bit better. You look back.
Well, it could have been handled better for the last 10 years.
Sure. Yeah.
That process, that SIV process, was grossly mishandled for the last however many years, and very few people that applied for that ever actually got approval and got permission to immigrate to the U.S. like they should have. But that monkey was Taliban for sure.
Maybe that's why they have him in the cage over there. Oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to look at a monkey the same again. Don't send me that picture.
But anyway, we finally got him into the crowds at the airport, and I kept trying to get him closer to the gates so we could get him recognized. I had him writing our unit information on signs, like on paper, to hold up and show the gate guards, Right. And he could never get close enough to the gate to get recognized. And there was a canal that ran right out past the airport. And he had told me like a couple people it's a shit canal, right? That's what's there.
Right.
There's a couple people that like gotten in there and been like trampled to death or drowned or whatever in 2 feet of water. And in order to get up closer, his wife and kid were there. Yeah. And at one point I was like, look, man, like you got to go to the gate or we're never going to get you in. You got to get in the canal and you got to walk up there. And he's like, well, people got trampled. And I'm like, well, you can either like stay out there and get left behind and get murdered by a Taliban, or you can get in that canal and walk to the gate. So he tried that. He still couldn't get in. There was barbed wire in the canal at that point to keep people away from doing exactly what we're trying to do. I managed to get connected with a Marine captain back here in the U.S. who knew the Marine captain that was going to come on shift at one of the gates. So we wrote that dude's name on a sign. We were trying to have him hold up the sign to get that dude's attention. That didn't work. Nothing was working. We sent him back and forth around the airport to 3 or 4 different gates. There was something called Operation Pineapple Express, which I think, did you hear about that at all?
I think it's actually now it might be on that. Is that the one that's on? There's one on.
Well, there's a movie with like Seth Rogen.
Yeah, but I think there's actually a documentary that just came out. It's on Amazon Prime.
Is it about that?
I think it is.
I think I heard something about it. But basically, what that was is I'm pretty sure that was like some special forces dudes.
Yeah, that bunch. I think it was. I think there's if it's not the same one, it's the same premise, but a bunch of active duty, or former active duty SEALs and special forces guys went over and.
Yeah, well, this particular part of it was they were gonna like either cut a hole in the fence or jump people over the fence if they could like show the password or say the right words right at the right time at the right place with the right password. And like the password was like a picture of a pineapple, right? So I was sending them trying to do all this crazy stuff that I was getting word about. And then my group was able to kind of collaborate and pick all these different pieces of information. And looking back on it, I'm sure like we were overwhelming the shit out of them on the ground because we kept feeding it to them, and maybe it wasn't all real or possible, right? Like we'd hear a gate was open or not, and we send them over there. And
what's crazy to me is like operational security, like we're hearing about that someone's telling you all these things on the ground, which is
exactly
blows my mind because at the time you there's somebody over there, and we all know what ultimately happened, which is horrible, but. I still, I don't, there's a lot of people I think that if you've never been there and you've never had that connection with a person to understand why you're trying to like circumvent everything we weren't supposed to be doing, like, nobody would want to be over there and have some Afghani guy throw up your name and be like, how the hell does that guy know my name? Yeah, this is a problem. You know what I mean? But at the time it was kind of
one of the guys in our group somehow he seemed to be in tight with somebody on the ground. I didn't know that guy, and I didn't know exactly what his connections were, but he seemed to be real tied into the intel and what was going on over there. So we were able to get a few guys out based on a lot based on what he was telling us. But with Fuad, like we tried all this stuff, it wasn't working. We'd send him all over the place, and we're back here pulling our hair out. We're like, holy shit, like this is horrible. Like my wife is getting pissed because I wasn't paying any attention to my family, and it was like
you're like, hey, honey, straight. Sorry, I can't feed the kids. But I'm just trying to get some guy.
Well, yeah, that's what it boiled down to. Yeah. We got to fight. We got a little bit of a fight about it because she was getting frustrated because I was spending all my time doing this. I'm like, these people are gonna die.
And my priorities suck.
Yeah. So I was like, these people are gonna die. I gotta do this. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so I had to step back and think about that. And I'm like, I'm frustrated. Like, think how they're feeling. They're out there. What is that? 100. I was like, they're on the ground and they're like, they don't have food. They don't have water. It's hot. It's dusty. Yeah. It's dangerous. They got a little kid who he was sick at the time. And I kind of had to take a step back and be like, well, I mean, I'm sitting here on my couch doing this shit. So I say it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but at the same time, I got to think about what they went through with that too. So it's crazy. But eventually they called me. It was like the middle of the night. And they called me and they're like, hey, we met this dude. And he says that he worked on the airport. And if we pay him, he can get us in a back gate. I was like, that's bullshit. That's not how this works. Right. Nobody's going to be able to get you in the gate because you paid them. And they're like, okay, we'll let you know. And then they call me back a little while later, and they're like, okay, we're going with him. I'm like, fuck. Right. I was like, man, okay, whatever. Like, it's your call. It's not what I'm telling you to do.
You bagged them.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's not what I'm telling you to do, but whatever. And so they're like, we're going to call you in a little bit. When we get to the gate, we're going to call you. And sure as shit, this little weasel of a dude took their money, and he got them to the gate. But
is he a weasel though? I mean, he took their money. I mean,
dude was shady. I was nervous that they were going to get murked.
I mean, Magnum.
Like
You
I
do
was
Magnum.
not, I was not trusting this dude at all because he's just like smooth tongued kind of guy, you know, just talking his way out of anything. And so he calls me from Fuad's phone and starts telling me what's going on. I'm like, first of all, why are you calling me? Second of all, where's Fuad? Like, give him his phone so I can talk to him. I don't want to talk to you. I don't know you.
Right.
And so they're like, okay, we're going to call you when we get to the gate. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so sure shit, they do. Like an hour later, they get to the gate. They're like, it's like 2 a.m. They call me. They wake me up. And they're like, hey, we're at the gate. We need you to talk to this Marine. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, hand him the phone. I'm like, hey, man.
Hey, how are you?
I'm like, hey, my name is Matt Dresbach. I was a captain in the Army. I was there in 2011, 2012. This is my guy. Let him in. He's like, okay, sir. He's like, and it's him and his wife and his son and his brother. And I'm like, well, what?
Yeah, you're like, brother. I don't
like,
know
and his brother? I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, yeah, and his brother. Because I didn't want them to get turned away because if they found out they were lying about that, then they'd kick them all out, you know?
Right.
And so they're like, okay, cool. And then they go through the gate and then they give the phone to another Marine. Same thing. I was like, hey, this is Matt. I was a captain, blah, 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 blah. These are my guys. Let them in. And his brother, like, yeah, whatever. And his fucking brother. Oh, yeah. So they get in there and they have to go through all the biometric screening and stuff, right? And it's just like a line that, I shit you not, it takes like 2 days to go through. So they get in the airport and they start waiting in this line and they're sending me pictures and like, we're in, we're safe. And it's like a big sigh of relief because it's like, okay, we're in, we're gonna be okay,
Right.
we're gonna get out. And then the damn bombs went off outside the gate. Then that suicide bomber detonated while they were in the airport. That shit happened right where they were when I told them not to leave. When I told them to stay there and don't go with this shiesty dude, it happened right there.
So you do you, Magnum. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've never been so glad somebody did not listen to me.
He doesn't know shit, Magnum.
And so they were inside when that stuff happened. And then after a while, their phones died and I couldn't get a hold of them anymore. And I was working with a lady named Hala who was with the Truman Project out in California to get them manifested for flights. And so I had them manifested on 2 different flights. The first one they missed, and then the second one they missed because I was sending them the information and their phones were dead and they weren't getting that. So they didn't know they were supposed to fly. And then at one point, the shady dude, his name was Abdul Haq.
Was that the brother, though?
The brother,
okay,
yeah.
The brother.
Abdul Haq calls me.
For all you that weren't following along, because Nathan in the audience wasn't seeing that, I had to help him out. He was like, he had no idea that was the brother.
So Abdul Haq calls me from his own phone, and we're trying to talk to. He gives the phone to one of the soldiers on the ground there, and I'm like, hey man, like I got these people manifested for flights. Can't you bump them up in line? Can we make this go a little faster? And he basically told me to pound sand. He's like, no. He's like, we can't do that. Like they're in here. Like there's a line, there's a process, whatever. And I'm like, well, they've been in the damn line for a day and a half. Like, come on. And so at that point, like I just didn't hear from him again for a while. Farhan, his son, was sick. His 1-year-old son was sick. There was something wrong with his eyes. And so I'm freaking out because I keep missing these flights and I don't know what's going to happen. And shit's getting hot outside, you know, don't know what's going on. The U.S. was just accelerating the pace of that evacuation very quickly at that point. And so there's a lot of uncertainty about if people inside the gate were going to get thrown out, if they were going to get left behind when the last plane took off. We just didn't know. And so back to the group of guys I was working with, I kind of had one of those guys reached out to me, and he kind of did some behind-the-scenes stuff. He did, we'll say, right? He was an intel type guy. And he said, hey, I don't know for sure, but I know this guy got my guy out, like out in the city, like they scooped him. He's like, maybe he can help with your guy because he called me, like he reached out to me and said, we don't have anything to do right now. Do you need any help? And I was like, okay, sweet. Here's where they were 10 hours ago. I don't have anything else on them. I have them. I know the kid is sick, and I know they missed some flights that I had him manifested on.
And the guy who's his brother is not his brother. Don't bring him.
Yeah. And so this guy, like I told him this, right? An hour and a half later, I get a picture of him. And it's with Fuad's wife and son and this dude.
His brother.
No,
did.
not the brother. The dude that was looking
Okay,
for
well,
him, right?
okay, well.
And so this dude is one of these folks who doesn't exist, right? And the connection here, this guy was my high school buddy's wife's cousin's wife's assistant's niece's husband.
Whoa. You lost me on that.
That's how deep these networks and these connections went.
No,
like how crazy
yeah.
things were. And so literally I hadn't seen them in 10 hours. I hadn't talked to them in 10 hours. I knew where they were 10 hours ago. I said, here's where they were. And an hour and a half later, I get a picture of him with them. And it's like, don't show this picture to anybody. I'm like, okay, I won't. And all I got at that point was he found them. They're safe. They're going to fly. I was like, okay. It was kind of a big moment.
Right. Yeah. I can so how many days is this whole experience up to that point from the beginning? You said 10 days.
That was probably 10 days. Yeah. 10 days from there to there. And then maybe 4 hours later, Abdul Haq, the brother, calls me. And I think he sent me a picture and then he called me. They're getting on a plane to Qatar. And then they went to Qatar and they were in Qatar for a week or two. And then I didn't talk to them really all that time. We had no idea what was going on. And then after that, they fly to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and they're going to be in process here. And I had a high school buddy who lived down that way, and his wife was big, like in like a disaster relief organization in Northern Virginia. And so Fawad was actually slated to go to Dallas. And I managed to have her pull some strings to keep him there in New Jersey. I was like, I'll drive over and get him. Don't send him to Dallas. I'll come get him.
Send him to Bliss.
Yeah, send him to Bliss. And
because I want to go duck hunting when it's established there.
So I found out that the way to handle that situation was not to just go get them. So they ended up staying in that refugee camp, like seriously refugee camp. Think like FEMA tents with thousands of people in them, right? Bunk beds. They're stealing from each other. There was measles outbreaks in there. People were like, there was a kid that got murdered while he was there. It was a bad place. So they came right out of Afghanistan, right into this mess in the U.S. because we just weren't equipped to handle that volume of traffic, right? And so
Are we equipped? Yes. Were we? Did we plan to do it? No.
Yeah. Fair.
But we are definitely equipped to deal with what happened. We just didn't. We did not prepare the right way. So we're not going to get political, but definitely.
So
I've been to Dick's. There's definitely to be able to handle it, but when you don't have a plan what you're doing, bad things happen.
That's fair. So they lived in this tent city for 2 months. September 5th, they got there. November 5th, I picked them up at the Columbus airport. I met him there. It's kind of late at night, and there was a guy from a refugee immigration service, Columbus Refugee Immigration Service, I think, that's the name of the organization, not the guy. Abdul Haq did not come with them. He went somewhere else. But anyway, I picked them up at the airport. They stayed with me for about 5 days, and then they got resettled in an apartment up here in Columbus. So he worked for a while.
So what did before you go? What did the wife think about everybody moving in?
She was cool with it. She didn't mind that at all because we knew it was a short-term thing, and she knew it was important to me. So
yeah,
she's pretty supportive of that. And his wife's a great cook. It turns out my wife really likes Afghan food now. So there were no problems there.
Yeah. You're like,
but it was really cool because like right after they got there, I had pictures of Fawad and his son Farhan and my son like playing on the playground at my house, playing in the sandbox. And it was just crazy to think like 10 years prior, we were just like young, invincible guys fighting a war in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And now 10 years later, we're like chilling in Chillicothe, Ohio, and our kids are playing in the sandbox.
Right.
Like,
and he's not
the actual sandbox, like not the shitty sandbox.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. And he's probably glad that you don't call him Magnum anymore. Do you just call him Magnum every once in a while? Like,
yeah, sometimes.
He's just like, thank God he calls me by my full name.
Sometimes he introduces himself to people that way, though. God. He goes, because why wouldn't you?
I mean, if it was Jack Bauer, I feel like he might have been able to, bad joke, but he might have been able to get to the gate quicker, like the spy name, Jack Bauer. I mean, I don't know, but no, it is crazy. I mean, that is a turn of events. Like, I think a lot of people that are, a lot of us that are Afghani veterans, a little over a year ago, forget what, where you fall on the political spectrum. For us, what happened a few months ago, a year ago and some months ago was awful, because we did form relationships with these people, and we saw what they were sacrificing. We knew what they were sacrificing at the time. And then, a lot of us will agree that we didn't do the best, to get them there before total chaos. And obviously when chaos came, a lot of people that should have been taken care of a long time ago, we failed them. And I think we all burden that a little bit. I think we all feel that, whether, you're probably happy that Magnum made it out, but unfortunately Jack Barrow might not have.
Well, Jack Bauer's here before. I do know that.
Jack Sparrow. What are the kind of names you guys gave him? I still can't believe you got to name him. I'm still stuck back that. Yeah. I'm stuck on the naming.
You should go back.
The monkey. You burning my esophagus out with the monkey thing. I just want to know if the monkey's back. You need to find for Magnum. That monkey is probably in the Columbus Zoo now. You guys don't know it.
Yeah, probably.
He's been.
I'll go over there. It'll be like the monkey and Family Guy.
So,
he's in a way.
Yeah, but if you go to some zoo and there's an asshole monkey, you need to. He's probably that. This is the monkey we're talking about. Where do they send him? Like the San Diego Zoo or somewhere? He's out there all bitter.
Start looking for IEDs real quick.
I thought you were gonna be like, I'm so happy. This monkey made me remind me of home, and you literally go, that monkey's an asshole. I mean, he was caged up. What do you expect?
So bad.
I mean, everybody that came by probably picked up that fucking monkey. It probably would have killed you if it got out. So, Magnum's back here.
Yeah.
Is he still local?
Yeah.
So what's he doing? What's he doing now?
I don't want to talk too much about that.
Yeah. Doing well. I mean, working.
Yeah, working. He's worked a couple different jobs here in Columbus. He was working at a restaurant for a while, and then now he works in management at a factory.
Cool.
Up by Delaware, but I don't want to talk.
So good support for him in this area, or?
Oh yeah. One of my best friends lives up here in Columbus, and his wife is Indian. And Fuad's like crazy smart dude. He speaks like 6 languages. He was a pharmacist. After he was an interpreter, he became a pharmacist before coming over here. And my buddy Jeff's wife, Riz, speaks Urdu. And so when we got here, or when they got here, we took them to their daughter's baptism. And then we went back to Jeff and Riz's house afterwards for the party. And her parents were there, and they just started speaking in Urdu. It was the first week they were here. He went to his first Christian church service and then went there and started speaking Urdu. I'm like, well, that's awesome that you have that connection here.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff and Riz have been super supportive. We collectively, Jeff, me, my parents, Jeff's parents, we all kind of threw in together and bought Jeff's grandpa's car for Fuad. So he had to get his driver's license and all that when he got here. And so Jeff and his family have been super supportive as well. They've been down and celebrated some holidays with us at my parents' house. And,
have you taken him duck hunting yet?
I haven't taken him duck hunting yet.
Does he have any desire to do it?
I don't know. He'd probably eat it. I think he wants to eat goose. And deer, I guess deer is a delicacy in Afghanistan. So
I don't think I ever saw. Were there any deer over there? I don't remember.
I think they were all pen raised. We talked about he and I talked about this one time.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of goats.
Yeah.
A lot of goats.
Yep.
Goat's good too. I'd eat a goat. Goat's always good to eat.
Yeah, we had some over there. Pretty good.
Never had a moose though, like you.
His
creme brulee moose you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. His wife was cooking some lamb. The last 2 times we've seen them, she served lamb. That's pretty good.
So a challenge out to all the veterans, and obviously, like I said before, Matt did not disclose any of this in this way to me this was going on. I might not have said no about a fundraiser. So way to make me feel awful about myself. So if there's any way I can help now, let me know. I'll do the best I can to help. But all the veterans out there, there's ways. I mean, a lot of people we're definitely on the front lines of getting people out. And I got to thank you and all the guys and gals that were here over there that helped do that. It's pretty amazing. And it actually it makes me feel good. A certain part of me that I felt guilty about, not about a joking side about that, but always feeling like we abandoned people.
Oh yeah.
We asked people, we gave a word. I think one of the things about being an American is the words we gave them. I think, every time I told them I meant that, for me, and then expecting that the person taking over for me was going to feel the same way. And that I just feel like obviously, not to be political, but we abandoned a lot of people that we promised a lot of things to. So hearing that story, makes my heart feel, my little black heart, beat a little bit better. You know what I mean? My tiny heart, my Grinch heart. But if any of the veterans out there, I'm sure there's places that are still helping. Like, are you still connected with all of the United States, or is it more regionalized now? Have you given up that?
So since he got out, I mean, our group's not nearly as active as what we were. You know, we still talk once in a while, but we got, like I said, we got a few others out too. There are some that we did not get out that are still over there, and I know there are a couple of people that are still trying to do that.
Right.
He was the only one I personally knew that I was working on getting out, and so once he got out and he's here and he's safe, I've pretty much been focused on helping them.
Right. Acclimating back, acclimating the States.
Yeah, because they don't have any family here. Like, we're their family now. Like, they have family in Afghanistan still. And it's funny. Every time I see him, he tells me he talked to his mom or he talked to his dad. Before they ask about anybody, his parents ask him how my kids are doing. How's Matt? How's Ruxin? How's Fletcher? And they want to know about my family. And then they'd be like, okay, how are you? How's Farhan?
Yeah, how are we doing over in the States? Like, you guys are fine. It's fine.
So, I mean, it's like they have an immense gratitude for me, like getting them out and getting them safe. But, I mean, I have an immense gratitude to him for what he did for us while we were there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think it evens out. That's the funny thing, how,
Yeah. And his family's still at risk. Like, the Taliban was still bugging his parents about, where is he? I think his dad told him he went somewhere else, some other country or something, but
that's good news that they're still alive, and that it's not as bad as it's bad, but obviously, hopefully, I'm glad to hear that they're not going around and just I mean, they are in some cases, but not everyone's executing everybody over there. But
I mean, I think one of his friends got executed. Like, this is crazy. So, like, he showed me a thread on Facebook, and it looked like a YouTube page, right, where you can just click through and watch videos. But it was on Facebook, and I couldn't find this anywhere on United States Facebook. It was Afghan Facebook, and it was just murder videos, like the Taliban murdering people, the Taliban stoning people, the Taliban shooting people in the streets. And no matter how hard I looked, I could not find that stuff anywhere on my Facebook. So, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I have to wonder, like, what's going on with the algorithms and what's being hidden from us and what's available, because he showed me a video of his friend being executed in the street. So that stuff's still happening. And the situation with, like, women and girls over there is deteriorating quickly.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was always most proud of. We used to do Team Village, it was called. So we go to, some remote village, and we bring doctors and dentists and, and then also, of course, like the PSYOPs guys and civil affairs guys, and then guys and gals or whatever, to be politically correct. But what was crazy is we would, when we get into some of these villages, would be, we want to provide all these things. We have all these assets. And even then it was like, we were breaking up, years of just neglect and abuse where, we'd see, 100 guys line up, and we'd be like, no, we're not, like, women and children first. And they would argue with us. And I mean, we basically tell them, in better terms, fuck you. You're not getting any of this unless you get to the back of the line. And it was funny to watch as you start to see it changing. And then I'd see stuff where, girls are going to school, and it wasn't like that. And just, it's sad to think that after 20 years, you can say what you want about, the progress we made. But, I know deep down in my heart, we did good for a lot of people. And it is sad to see those things deteriorate. But like Matt said, there's still people that are over there. I'll send the dogs that are barking right now. You can have them over there. We'll send them over. I'll trade it for the monkey. That's where he's at. We'll take the monkey because my dogs are assholes. But in all seriousness, though, there's still people that are over there. So if you are a veteran and you did have a relationship or were touched by somebody over there and they're not back here, and you can reach out to them. I'm shocked to hear actually the story that you guys were able to connect that way. Yeah. It's a digital time. It's different than when I was over there. That's amazing. But don't give up. If they're still over there, there's a lot of people that did right by us. We owe them that to get them back. So, not only do what you can do with the underground network, again, not to get political, but you should demand this from our leaders that we should still be doing that and taking care of those people, like you said before, that, kept us out of harm's way. Because I feel like I personally at the time didn't have an extreme amount of trust. I didn't trust them 100%, but at the end of it, I was like, holy shit, like these people, I remember one time asking like why they were working with the military, like why are you working with the Army? And this guy's like, well, why wouldn't I? And I'm like, what? you're Afghani. And he's like, but I don't like where Afghanistan's at. I just want to be free. I want to be able to do what I want to do. And like, why would I not help you? And I was like, I was kind of shocked by that because I'm thinking, I was thinking of the risk, but to them, the risk, the reward is worth the risk over there, but I think a lot of these people bought into what we would tell them. I mean, we paid them money. We promised them a ton of shit. And then
left.
Yeah. And then we screwed them just like it happens to veterans as well. You tell them that you're not going to go to Fort Bliss and they send you to Fort Bliss.
You're going to get college money, something like that.
What was that?
You're going to get college money, something like that,
Yeah, we're going to pay for you. And no, you're not. No, it's all this kind of stuff.
I did have a buddy who was a company commander in a different unit. He's actually a Chillicothe guy too. But when I asked him about all this stuff because we were just trying to build the network, right? And he's like, "Well, no, I'm not interested in that." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, one of my interpreters, it turned out, was like working for the Taliban."
Yeah.
He said he was my interpreter, and then one day like some dudes in blacked out helicopters rolled in, and like scooped him up, and we never saw him again. And it turned out like he was feeding information to the Taliban. So they weren't all good.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to that whole. Yeah, but not every soldier is good either. I mean, come on,
right?
Like, it's where do you draw the line? But I mean, I think I take the higher level of that. There was a ton of people that were working with us doing stuff that was like crazy. I remember just like raking guys across the coals about trucks that weren't showing up because when I was there, it was the warlords were running trucks for us and ended up like it's a story that's too long. This episode dragging on, but we thought people were stealing, Afghanis were stealing fuel from tankers, and it was actually Americans that were trading it for hash in Kandahar. And we're like, I'm ready to like honestly turn these guys over to whoever is thieves. So there's good and bad of everything, but I just feel like the big picture, there's someone definitely reaching out there. There's someone that, first of all, I hope that there's veterans like myself that are listening that served in that theater and that, that harbor the guilt and feel bad about, who we might have left behind and who we didn't help, but to hear the story, like to me, it makes me feel good. So I hope you're listening to that. And the other part about it, if there's someone there that did connect with you and you can get a hold of them and they're not back here, do the best you can. Obviously you need to talk to Matt. This guy's like figured out how to do the whole underground Pineapple Express to get them over here. So we won't mention about the brother that's here. So
gotta bring extras.
I think if you're listening to this, we don't know what the brother's doing, but hopefully he's staying out of trouble.
Sorry, I gotta throw a pitch in here. One of my buddies that was involved in that group, he said, "Spread Patriots weekend while we're here."
Okay.
We've been doing this. We've been doing this for years, even before we started working together to get people out of Afghanistan. But one of their families has a cabin in the woods down in Chillicothe, and it's a great place to drink. And so every Veterans Day weekend, we go down there and just enjoy each other's company, and we reconnect because we're kind of spread out, right, in Columbus and Dayton and Chillicothe at this point, kind of spread all over. So Veterans Day weekend, we go down there and kind of hang out for the weekend, and we go squirrel hunting and drink and hang out and have campfires and make good food and stuff like that. So we typically like to open that up to
so definitely post it in the group as it comes up. It's in here. Also DM Matt if you want to know more about it. The cabin things where this better be a really nice cabin for us to go all the way to Chillicothe. I mean,
it's not a nice cabin. I'm sorry, Steve. It's nice for what we use it for,
which is to stay out of
Steve's always working on it.
To stay out of the cold.
Yeah.
Keep the bottles dry.
It's a good place to hang out.
So is this like a sleepover? Is this a day thing or what is it?
No, we usually go Friday through Sunday.
Oh, nice.
I got some stuff going on, so I'll be in and out this year, but
nice.
It's a good time. That cabin was the first place I ever got drunk.
What?
In high school.
Oh God, I thought he was going to tell me he didn't start drinking until
yesterday.
He was like 35. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. Shouldn't spread those rumors about it and that nice monkey that you're slandering.
I wish there were monkeys there. They're not.
I still can't believe it. My esophagus still has not recovered from that at all. I mean, I feel like I'm going to die still.
Little Eagle Rare out the nose, did you?
Oh my God. You'd think that would make me not want to drink, but that's not the case. I'll take some more over there. Oh, that's enough. Holy cow.
You say when?
Oh, jeez.
Infantry getting weak over here.
I mean, now's the perfect time. I can't feel my throat right now. And I have to say, like, it's never happened, but whiskey through coming like the way that did is not good.
It's not supposed to go that way. No,
definitely not. Feels better the other way. But thank you for coming on, and I've been super excited to share the story. Are we gonna do hats now? Are we gonna do a hat off first before we go?
I brought you something.
I like gifts.
So these are called Mish stickers. So this was our thing in 5-1 Cav. If you're in the Army or in the military and you've gone anywhere in the Middle East or any of those airports that you fly through, you've probably seen these things all over the damn place. That was our squadron motto. It means make shit happen.
All right.
It's on my hat too. We got patches.
Nice.
But my squadron commander kind of instituted that. It was make shit happen, and we put those things all over the place. And the squadron is still using that today.
It's on Kiowas, it's on Strikers, and
if you go on Google Maps and you Google Yukon River in Alaska, and like you pull it up and you look at the sign and you zoom in on the pictures where it says Yukon River, you'll see one of those stickers on there. I put it there.
That's your most proud moment.
Oh yeah, that's my contribution to the United States Army.
Yeah, that's a good one. We've actually one of the Jason that deployed a while back. We were super happy about being able to put stickers from our bourbon group on Blackhawks. So we're hoping they're still flying around somewhere. And
yeah,
that's cool. We might have to actually. We have one of our Pours with Patriots admin group that's going back into harm's way. So we might have to get him one of these, and maybe he can post it where he's at.
Yeah, there you go.
And get some keep the train moving. But that's awesome. Thank you. But he did bring it. He did bring his Stetson, and I did want to tell him like there's all. Are we doing the hat off before we go? Holy cow! So we're gonna do a hat off. I still think the Stetson is ridiculous. So I pulled this out of, which I think is a better hat.
Oh, but you can't drink out of that hat,
dude. It doesn't matter. It looks 10 times.
You
better.
Can't drink out of that hat.
It looks 10 times. Does this still fit my head? Holy cow.
No.
Oh, come on. This looks way better.
But everybody has one of those in a different color.
Yeah, but they don't have this color, though. That's a better one. So, do we end at that? And we keep the hats on for the rest of the show?
Yep.
We'll switch it out. So we got to take a vote. I think the Bray looks better. Bray's 10 times better, dude. Holy cow. Did my head get fat, too?
Happens to the best of
us.
But
they don't. The thing you're not telling the truth, though, is these guys don't wear this all the time. This is when they.
So we do wear them a lot. But. Yeah. The rest of the Army
when
doesn't
they're all
like it.
When they're all around each other and they put spurs on, they clank around. Like this is like an everyday. God, I was feeling good about myself.
Berets are so French.
But I still can't believe I busted this out. It still fits actually.
I could have brought my black one.
No, the black one's awful. So we have to vote. I said the Bray still wins. Like yours is, but for people like this is a cab thing. They love having their cabs and. Their cab hats and their Stetsons. It is a good deal. So you guys do spur rides, right? So that's the one thing first person we talked about. So are we keeping the hats on for real?
Yeah.
I forgot how hot this is making my head. There's no vent.
Mine's okay.
Come on, man. Mine's fine.
Oh yeah, I'm allergic to horses. I was going to tell you that when you read that horse quote.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Very. It's funny, right? I'm glad I never had to do one of those like historical calf pictures where they make you ride horses and take a unit, like a staff picture or something.
This only gets better because the fact that, like, could you imagine they sent you like you become a cav officer, like you're at the school sneezing, having fits.
Can't breathe.
Send him to the quartermaster court. The shit that I've heard tonight is great. A cab officer that's allergic to horses is great. So, but they do actually to get your spurs is a cab ride, right?
Yeah,
spur ride. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's also enlisted and officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the spur ride? It's like a.
So you can get gold spurs.
Hazing?
Yeah, it's pretty much hazing. You can get gold spurs from being deployed, even if you're not cav and you deploy with a cav unit. They'll give you gold spurs, but the silver spurs, like these here, are earned on a spur ride, and it's pretty much like 2 or 3 days of field training and hazing. So when we did ours, I was in Alaska, and we dropped into a clearing in Chinooks. And one thing I remember is that there was buffalo shit everywhere because there's like wild forest buffalo that live in Alaska. If you didn't know
Thank
that.
God there weren't horses for you, though. But
Yeah, thank God. That'd have been a bad day. And we ran up and down the mountains for a few days and ran 6 lanes, and we did an obstacle course and a PT test and all that good stuff. And we got yelled at a lot. I wasn't in very good shape at the time, and my legs started to cramp up. So my squadron commander started making fun of me like halfway up a mountain.
that motivates you when
He's
you
like,
make
call me a
fun.
pussy.
Yeah, but that's with enlisted and officer at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we do in the airborne, we do prop blasts, which is just officers, which is kind of interesting. It's like 2 days of the same thing. Of at Bragg, we recreate like some pretty famous stuff that some 80-second operations. Like the funny thing is going across a pond, from World War II, and then it's generally a bunch of hazing and then a lot of drinking. I don't even really
What do
know
you
why,
get at the end?
It's funny. It actually, if I remember, it actually started from the original, like from the airborne units, in World War II, and then you don't get anything except for like they just stop fucking with you at a certain point. So it's kind of crazy. It ends up all the way into like for ours it ends up to like you're at the very end. You do a bunch of stuff. You actually learn a lot about the airborne stuff. You go with the riggers. You do all kinds of stuff. A lot of like you're just getting hazed and running around, the same type of stuff, and then. But there's a big like dining. What I was I'm getting old. Like the dining in is just the military members, right? Or the dining in. Okay.
Dining in, and then you'd have a military
dining
ball,
out
which
with the
would have
dining
your
out.
spouses.
So, but yeah, you have the prop blast, and then it's all all the airborne officers that have already been prop blasted, and then like you have to like they put you in. For us, they put us in like a simulated aircraft, and you have to jump out of there, and like people are hitting you with tree branches and throwing water on you, and then you come out and there's all these officers, and there's a board of officers that ask you a bunch of questions, and usually you got to like put on a skit to get through, and then generally like you want to get through. If not, if they kick you out, you got to go back and start the whole process again. So
we had leaders calls that were like that, where we'd all put on our Stetsons and go leave work early and go to the bar and drink and do skits and stuff.
And the cap, but we wear this all the time. These guys wear it and gals wear it whenever they want to.
Whenever we're in the squadron footprint, you can wear it. As long as you don't like go out to the infantry battalions or something, you're good.
So they are good. My dad's a Cav guy. My dad's the first Cav guy, so I like to give him a hard time about being Cav. You know what I mean? But it's all right. I still think the Brave wins, although I can't really see it, and I feel like it's. I've noticed just in the past couple episodes. I don't know if it's the alcohol going the wrong way, but I feel like I can't see right now. But no. Did that just glitch or was that me? Okay, but that's fine. So we're actually getting to the end of it here. I just want to thank you again, Matt, for coming on. Thanks for the sticker. Thanks for coming in and sharing the story. I've been super excited. As you know, I called you one night to get you in here. Yes, I was drinking.
It was a Thursday night after one of these podcasts.
It was time to come in. I was trying to get you in there. And like I said, for anybody that if you're in the area, we'd love to have you on. Everybody's story is important. So again, thank you for coming and sharing your story. I've been super excited to hear about Magnum. I think you should have put that in the email earlier to know that name. Then I'm glad you didn't, because it was more of an exciting thing. But so again, thank you for coming on. Thanks for bringing your dad. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for what you continue to do. And again, if you're looking for a good time here, if you're in the Columbus area, we'll consider Chill Coffee, the Columbus area. Look forward to maybe Matt will put a post into the group about what do you call it? Patriots Weekend? Patriots Weekend. I think I might have to send a cease and desist on that name now with the group or anything. So, but no, honestly,
you come down and have pours with Patriots Weekend.
We could do that. Yeah. Ooh, look at that. We might be able to broadcast. Obviously, I thought about doing it in the cabin, but now
that's not going to work.
It doesn't have electricity. Forget that idea. We'll do it. So, but before we get to let's go back to the original quote, because we have to go back to quotes. The first quote. After we talked about it, and it's kind of even more funny to talk about because of what you told me. So I feel like everything happens for a reason. Like I don't believe in that, but when we read the quote, especially what he just shared about being allergic to horses, this is kind of funny that this is the quote. So the first quote I skipped over was, go ahead and hit it, Josh. A horse must be a bit mad to be a cavalry mount, and its rider must be completely so, from Stephen Pressfield. So that's kind of funny. I mean, that obviously does not count for him. The mount knows what he's doing. He can't get on the mount.
Yeah. With dismounted cavalry.
I have never heard that in my entire life, but that just made my night. So We'll go to the part of the night that I always hate, but the reason why I originally started this whole thing is we're going to talk about a fallen patriot, patriot that again, like we talked about earlier, and we always talk about, suicide is not an option, but she decided to make a bad decision. So anybody that's out there, like we've always said before, there's tons of places you could talk to. Definitely don't go this route. It's not the way to go. So tonight we're going to honor U.S. Army Specialist Michaela Bragg, who was 20 years old. Michaela took her life on December 21st, 2011 at Forward Operating Base Salerno in Afghanistan. At the time of her death, she was assigned to the 201st Brigade Support Battalion, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 1st Infantry Division out of Fort Knox, Kentucky. Michaela was born on June 9th, 1990. She graduated from Mark Morris High School and joined the United States Army to earn some money to study veterinary medicine when she got out. Unfortunately, Michaela, like some other veterans, had several encounters with the military mental health system prior to her taking her life. Had her medical health been able to be shared, her commanders in Afghanistan would have known that she previously attempted suicide. Spent 45 days in an Army hospital for mental health treatment, and about 6 months prior to deploying, ceased using her prescription anti-anxiety medication so that she could deploy. It's a tragedy. You should read about it. I picked her today because it's really hard to find a lot of information about her, so I thought it would be great to honor her. Michaela's friend said that she was very sarcastic, but always had a smile. Michaela loved Disney movies. Her two favorites were The Lion King and Finding Nemo. And as her friend says, she touched so many lives and will forever be missed and loved by so many. So, again, always able to reach out to me and in the admin team of the group, but I'm not a professional. I'm definitely not going to say the right thing. But if you're having any problems or know anybody that's having problems, definitely you should reach out to the Veterans Crisis Hotline. It's awesome now. You can just dial 988 or you can dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. Or if you want to text, it's 838-255. And again, if you're having any issues or know somebody it is, give them that number. Like all the people that we've honored, and like Michaela, I wish somebody had talked to them and decided and given them that support that they needed to not make a bad decision. So again, we'll go to the final quote because we got third quote for the because this was the easiest one, believe it or not, finding Cavalry. Armor.
There's so many good ones.
Yeah, there's always,
you gotta have a patent quote for an armor officer.
I knew you had to do it.
Come on.
I knew you were doing it. So he's jumped ahead. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna end with a patent quote. I mean, we had to do it because we got the sweatshirts in. So everybody that ordered your sweatshirts and t-shirts, they just arrived literally like 15 minutes before we went live. So those will be coming out. The glassware hats, they're still coming. So he actually looked at the Pours with Patriots, and it's a green army man, but somehow he looked at it and he's determined that it's General Patton on there. So he wants to see it. A lot of people have the shirt. It's
definitely Patton.
It's a green army man.
That's not correct.
It could be whoever you want it to be. It could be
Let the audience be the judge of this.
It could be me.
Who's that?
Dude, it could be me holding that if I had a different hat on.
It's Patton for sure.
We'll call it Patton. So we'll end the night. We'll end episode 16 with a Patton quote because, like you said, you can't have an armor officer on without having a Patton quote. And I thought this was a great one, especially, and honestly, what's fun about picking these quotes is somehow they help me pick the people. And had I known the story, and I think this is ties into what happened with you and Magdalene, and I hope you take this as a personal note because I think it applies to you as well. So as General George S. Patton said, we herd sheep, we drive cattle, we lead people. Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. So Matt, thanks for coming on. We'll see you in about 4 years in Chillicothe or this November. So everyone, we're going to have our next guest is actually going to be another off-schedule guest. It'll be on a Sunday coming up. If you look at the schedule, you don't want to miss this. We're going to actually have a published author that'll be coming in to follow on Matt's story. Hopefully he's a Marine, so they're going to get along with, the story's going to be very similar, but thank you, Matt, for coming in.
The story's published in crayon.
Yeah, it's written in crayon, but it's actually a real book, so I'm kind of surprised about it. Maybe it was in the Marine Corps, but thank you, Matt, for coming. Thanks for bringing your dad. It's been a great episode, and we'll see you folks in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank
Take
you.
care.